I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Hohen, are you going to give us a roll call this morning? Welcome.
Supervisor Yomi here. Supervisor White here. Supervisor Horton here. Supervisor Schutte
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. That was, ta-da. It's a good day. We have new members on our board, our new clerk. It's an exciting day for all of us. And we have our Pastor Pat. Would you come and give us an invocation, please?
Good morning. Are we on here?
As soon as you push a button and make it green. Green means go.
There we go. Well, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And congratulations to the midtermers.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. In 2016, Reverend Graham's daughter, Ann Graham Lotz, wrote a prayer, and it was adapted and re-released, and I'm going to plagiarize the title of it because I thought it was appropriate for this morning for us. And it's called, we prepare for a new year. This is pre-prayer for a new year. Prepare for a new year. So Proverbs 16:9 says, a man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs the steps. Psalm 37:23 says, the steps of a good and righteous man are directed and established by the Lord, and he delights in his ways and blesses his path. When he falls, he will not hurl down, because the Lord is the one who upholds him with his hand and sustains him. And we know that that's the Lord. When we have a gender specific in here, it's not. It's for the all-inclusive. When it says man, it means mankind. So again, mankind's heart plans his ways, and the steps of a good and righteous mankind are directed and established by the Lord. Lord, this morning we come to you and gather in this place. And we ask you to direct our hearts towards you as we pray for this new year, that we would be prepared for it all the way through. We ask for your blessings and your guidance as we would ask you for your wisdom and your direction that would take place in all of these meetings and the meetings of the leadership in our community, our state, and our country. Lord, we thank you in advance for the sheriff's department, the fire department, and first responders, especially with the weather that we're having right now and the conditions, and the utility companies that are trying to keep the power on and keep us safe. Lord, we would ask you for your protection with all of that. Lord, we ask you for your favor upon these meetings. We yield our steps to you, that you would direct them and establish them in all that we think, all that we do, and all that we say, in your precious and mighty name, Lord. Amen.
Thank you so much for
welcome.
those good wisdom there.
Amen.
Good wisdom.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Mr. Horton, our new supervisor, would you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank
Have a
you
blessed
all so
year,
much.
y'all.
Thank you. Okay. We are now on to agenda item number 5, which is our beginning public comment. I have Leah signed up that indicated she'd like to do public comment. There she is, their little one. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning. Good morning. Can we sit here?
And it's already green.
Oh, good. Even better. All right. You ready?
I want to sit down right
Yeah, we're going
here.
to sit down right here. You ready? Do you want to tell them your name? Who are you? Okay. Thank you.
case.
This is Charlotte. She'll be assisting with public comment this morning. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Leah Case. This is Charlotte Case. We are residents of Ward 2, and I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, but speaking today as myself. Today, you will consider item 17A, a recommendation related to dogs in parks and open spaces. This policy has been in development since before I was appointed in 2019 to the Parks Commission. It involved a joint subcommittee of Parks and Rec and Open Space Commissioners, included tons of public comment and a public survey with over 700 responses, which is incredible for a public survey. These were not easy discussions. Our community is so passionate about this issue. The results stand that over 80% of Carson City residents own at least one dog, many of whom take their dogs to parks despite a complete ban of dogs in all parks, according to Municipal Code 13.02.090. Park staff have dedicated hundreds of hours. Let me switch microphones. Park staff have dedicated hundreds of hours and resources to developing this policy, these policy recommendations in conjunction with the public, park rangers, and the Nevada Humane Society. This task was made more difficult because Carson City does not have a citywide leash code. Instead, subsection 1 of Municipal Code 7.13.080 allows owners to demonstrate restraint by signal or voice command, which is a little tricky. Our current codes are confusing and inconsistent. The dog policy recommendation before you today is our attempt to back into a policy at the park level that might be better addressed at the city level. Item 17A is an attempt at consistency, inclusiveness, and better reflects how our parks and open spaces are actually used. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm going to use that cliche. This is a good first step. I urge your support in passage of recommendation in item 17A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Case. Do I have any other? I don't have anyone else signed up for, oh, you after the, that's okay. Come on up, Denny. Good morning, Denny.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you very much. First off, I'd like to thank the planning department for helping me out. Had a concern about property, but also Ash Canyon Creek. And I felt it was in jeopardy from a contract developer just off of Longview. And they're going to look into it for me. So I want to thank them for their consideration on that. It's a small place as far as view, and you might miss it as you're going along Longview. So take a look for it. It's beautiful, and I want it to stay that way. Thank you. The next thing is welcome to all your midtermers. I like that term. It saved me from trying to pronounce names. Thank you. And if I didn't already say, mayor and board members, I had a whole bunch of questions, so I went into as much review as I could on the agenda and the extra material that was provided. And my concern about the airport, and that would be 8A, is that the tower is extremely powerful as far as magnetic field outlay, and there are people that live not far from that particular site. And my understanding of safety zones, they don't quite make it, but since I didn't find the exact distance between those mobile home park. And anyhow, I am concerned about 8A, and I would like everybody to take a real good look at all the papers. There's a lot to read in that. I also have consideration as far as Fuji Park. that would be 12A. I'm wondering, is that a grant? It did mention that there were grants that have been used to do things like this, but in this case, it seems like an expense that we're really not up to right now with the other considerations that I think should be prior to it. And while I've been active with the community right off the bat as far as Fuji Park and trying to preserve that area, I'm not suggesting that I don't want activities there, and if they feel making some of these improvements would help, that would be great, but I'm opposed to that spending on number 8A, I believe it is. But I don't want it off the consent form if you're you know, it's going to pull your day out. I have several other concerns as far as where money's coming from and how it's working, but this is the information that was given, especially about the Sheriff's Department contracting, was inconsistent with what they were directing me to as far as what I should find, as far as negotiations for interviewing and change of positions. So thank you very much. That was a concern that the information didn't seem to match what. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Did I have anyone else as a late? Mr. Schultz. And our fire chief, thank you so much.
Good morning, Mayor, Board of Supervisors. Darren Schultz, Public Works Director for the record. Just wanted to give a quick report on our response to the, well, we're calling it the New Year's storm that's continuing on. It's just one storm after another. So we got various depths of snowfall across the city. Started before that, we had 4 inches of rain, and so it's been full, all hands on deck. As the storm has ebbed and flowed, we've been out clearing streets, and just wanted to assure you and the public that that effort continues. As we speak, we've been running round-the-clock shifts day and night to try to get all the streets open and passable. There's a lot of lane miles that you got to put a plow on, so it definitely takes some time to get into some of the deeper neighborhoods, but that effort is continuing. The current soft rain actually helps us. We just need it to stop at noon today, so if you guys can make sure that happens, because if it goes beyond that, then we're going to be back into a flood. And the chief will talk about some of the upcoming weather and our preparations for that. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the street snow plowing effort continues. We will continue till it's done. Every call we get, we take it seriously, and we're trying to dig people out. We made a lot of progress last night as it warmed up a little bit and we got a little bit of rain. We've hired some contractors to help us out in the neighborhoods. Our goal is to get everybody to where they can get out safely, and we'll continue that effort. So that's a report. If there's any questions on snow plowing, that sort of things, I would take those, and then Chief will give an update on emergency management.
Anybody have a question? Ms. Schutte?
I don't have a question, but a comment. I received late last night an email from a person who had reached out earlier, and she just really expressed appreciation for the city being out there, and she lives in a neighborhood, and so it's not tier 1 or tier 2, it's the tier 3, and roads got cleared yesterday, and she just was very appreciative. So I wanted to pass that on.
Anybody else have a snow plowing question? No? Okay, Chief Slayman.
Good morning, Sean Slayman, Fire Chief and Emergency Manager. Give you an update of what occurred from an emergency management and a total city perspective over the last 5 or so days. As we know, we got hit with a very heavy, wet snowstorm on New Year's Eve. And on the bright side, that kept most everybody home. And so from that side, it remained somewhat quiet. But the unfortunate side is we had massive power outages, not only in Carson City, but throughout northern Nevada. In Carson City alone, at the peak time, we had over 2,200 customers without power. Nevada Energy defines a customer as basically a unit. So a house, for example, is a single customer. That could be 5 or 6 people living in that home. So 2,200 is a significant amount. During that time, and as of today, as of this morning at 8, I'm happy to report we are down to 6 customer outages in Carson City. So I would anticipate those being remedied this morning or possibly as we are speaking now. During that time on the 1st and 2nd, we opened up warming centers the first day at the MAC building. Kudos to our Parks Department for being flexible and allowing that to happen. And the second day, we moved that to Fire Station 51. We did not have anybody attend any of the warming centers. And that was pretty common throughout northern Nevada. Every county that opened a warming center either typically had 3 or 4 customers show up or citizens show up. And so it was fairly small impact from that point. So it points to our communities are being prepared. In addition to that, collaboration and coordination, excuse me, we've had multiple daily meetings with the Division of Emergency Management from the state that included Nevada Energy, also included the National Weather Service and all of the counties impacted. So we were able to communicate together and problem solve and share any issues that we had. Much of it, we were really, our hands were tied as the majority of it was power-related issues. From a response perspective, the fire department alone, on the 31st, our call volume tripled. We average about 32 calls a day. We were well over 100 calls on the 31st. The 1st and the 2nd, our call volumes remained extremely high. They were over double our amounts into the 60 to 70 call volume periods. Crews were working nonstop in addition to trying to plow their own stations and keep things going and keeping vehicles chained up and being able to respond to our community. In addition to that, our Nevada Energy personnel that are funded by Nevada Energy, obviously there's not a whole lot of clearing that they can do right now with the snowpack. So they have been utilized they've been dispatched to power line down areas that frees up a fire engine to respond to greater emergencies, and they protect the area and protect the community until Nevada Energy is able to show up and de-energize those lines. So they've been active this entire time. In addition, while all this was happening, we supported the governor's inauguration here in this building. So we had most city departments were impacted or involved in that inauguration. And I would liken it to, as a city, we were much like a duck on water. Very smooth on the top, but below, those feet were moving all over the place. And between Public Works and what they were doing to clear our streets and clear trees, to the fire and police departments, to the parks departments, everybody was working together to keep our city running, functioning, and safe. Forecast-wise, looking forward, as we know, we're getting a little rain right now. Hopefully it stays light, as Darren mentioned. The next concern is Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. There's another predicted atmospheric river. It appears right now to be warmer, and we will likely get rain out of that, and that is a huge concern. Of course, the 31st was also predicted to be rain and not snow, and we got an amazing amount of snow. So very, very tough to predict. The National Weather Service also not very comfortable at I guess they're always not comfortable going out a week or two beyond that for forecasts, but it appears the storm doors are open and will remain open through January, and there are a couple other potential storms setting up. So this is going to be a long haul for us, and we ask our citizens to be prepared. We've put multiple pieces of information out and shared with the Nevada Appeal on what we recommend we can do to be prepared, but this last week was an example of the little things that can turn into big things. So any questions?
Question in general, because I know that there are a lot of downed tree branches. So do we have a plan, like, I don't know, like we do for Christmas trees or something, where people can take them to some collection areas? Can we start thinking, or let's put it that way, I know it's not our mission critical for now, but you can't even clear your sidewalks because we have so many downed tree branches. So if we can start thinking about what the citizens can do with all the tree branches, and then we can get, I see our newspaper man right behind us, so we can get a message out to the public on cut them up small, what's the plan, and how should we, I have 7 trees I think I lost, but sad, there went my fruit trees, but if you can work on something of that to help the public, because I know we have a lot of trees. I would appreciate that. Supervisor Giomi?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you know, the length of the outage from NV Energy has been sort of unprecedented. I can't recall a time when we've had that many people without power for that long. Did you get any sense from them as to, was it really purely broken lines? Was it parts of it? I mean, what was it? Why did it take so long?
I don't have a true answer for you for why it took so long, other than there was just massive power outages. Why, while it was a significant storm, I'm not sure why it created that much of an impact, but what they saw were the two major contributors to that were trees going down, and then the wet, heavy Sierra cement snow took out major transmission lines. And so that they basically collapsed and under the weight. And so that created problems. And then that weight continued to wear on, where they were getting outages the next day that they didn't have the day before because the lines were going down from that. So outside of that, I don't know. I do know, I believe it was on New Year's Day, they began calling in mutual aid from private agencies that they have contracts with from out of state. And, I don't have a true answer for that for them.
Okay. And then a comment, I know that it's not just your two departments, but the sheriff's office, parks, everyone's out there. So thanks on behalf of the citizens for the hard work, because I know it's constant, and I appreciate it. And as we get to this next storm, I know you guys know your job. It just, if you need us to do a disaster declaration so we can start getting state assistance or start moving in that direction, if it looks like that's going to happen for floods, just, let us know and we'll.
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah, I understand from the governor, we already have the National Guard is gearing up. So if we need them, we just need to make the call. I said, well, I bet we're going to have floods. Somehow I feel them coming. So just let us know. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so very much. We appreciate the update. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is approval of the minutes of December 1, 2022. Do I have any corrections or updates? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes for 1 December 2022 as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of December 1, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess I better, there you go. Any noes? I let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we are now on to agenda item number 7A, which is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing Greg Davis for his longtime contributions to our youth sports. Will you all join me down below? And I've asked for some help to get this work done today. I just can't do this myself, so I think there might be Ava and Colby and Camille and Sadie. Are you here to help us today? Oh, the mayor really needs it. Come on over. You girls for this help. It's so, wait, where's Grandpa? Got to stay up here. Oh, Grandpa was making, Grandpa, help out here. I set this up. You're not helping me. Okay, and then I've asked a longtime friend, Stacy Giomi, I understand, to read the proclamation.
Yes, thank you. So this is a proclamation, you can't leave yet, in recognition of Greg Davis. I'm looking at the resemblance. Whereas Greg Davis is a lifelong Nevadan, a proud graduate of Carson High School, as well as being a graduate of University of Nevada, Reno. Greg has contributed to the activities of the Youth Sports Association of Carson City, Nevada for more than 32 years and served as president of the association from 2012 to 2022 and truly has been an integral part of our community. And whereas he was similarly the president of the Carson City Girls Softball and president of Capital Soccer Club, he stood as the regional commissioner of American Youth Soccer Organization Region 140 for Carson City, and whereas Greg and his wife Shar, also a native daughter of Carson City, have directly contributed to youth soccer by raising two-star athletes, Allie and Kylie, and still cheer for their wonderful grandchildren as they play sports. And whereas he served as a longtime assistant in the operations of the Carson City Community Center Youth Basketball League, and whereas Greg has been a coach, umpire, referee, tournament manager, and general helper to all of the above-named youth sports programs. Now, therefore, Mayor Lori Bagwell, on behalf of the Carson City Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim January 5, 2023 as a day to honor Greg Davis. We extend our sincerest appreciation for the many long, cold hours helping players enjoy sports, along with spending an enormous amount of time coaching each players to achieve their greatest potential in both sports and life endeavors, for the days of work and the careful thought put into ensuring that Carson City Youth Sports programs serve the needs of all. Thank you from the tens of thousands of children and families for your efforts that helped grow to be better people. This day, January 5, 2023.
Do you have some more family members that want in the picture? No? Oh, come on
Yeah,
up. No,
Shar, come on up.
Come on.
Shar can come on
Let's
up.
turn around. You know what?
Shar's coming up.
There you go.
We're gonna exit too, and we're gonna let some people sit down. Thanks,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah, we have another one. Well, she's not here.
I don't see her though.
You want to just read it
Yeah.
from up here? It's radon. Turn that off. No, down is off.
It's important.
Off is important.
Okay, item 7B is a proclamation recognizing National Radon Month. I think Miss Taylor might be rained in or snowed in or something, but I just want to talk about it. It's important. It's colorless, odorless, naturally occurring radioactive gas that is the primary cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer in smokers. So it's really important. It kills more people than secondhand smoke, drunk driving, choking, drowning, or home fires. And we never hear about it, right? It's not something we ever hear about. But any home in Carson City may have elevated levels of radon, even if your neighboring homes do not. And living in a home with an average radon level of 4, this great long fancy word, peculiaries per liter of air poses a similar risk of developing lung cancer. And so what we really want to do here today is just to remind everyone to do the annual test. If you go by our extension office here in Carson, you can get the tests. And it doesn't cost you any money to run the test and then mail it in and you'll get your results back. So let's be safe. Take the annual test. It's worth it. Like I said, it's just, we don't want anyone dying from a radon gas, especially if you can just run a test to help solve it. The answer, if it's elevated, might not be as easy, but let's find out on that. And so again, stop by the extension office and get a free radon test. Okay, we're now on to our consent agenda. I'm going to pull item 8A. There was a public question that came in on that about the distance from the mobile homes. So we'll talk about that a little. And then we have a technical correction. Is there any other item on the consent besides 8A to pull for discussion? I didn't see anything on a public comment requesting one. I'll accept a motion for everything except for 8A.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 9A, 9B, 10A, 11A, 12A, 12B, 12C, 12D, 12E, 12F, and 12G as presented.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, item 8A is for discussion and possible, oh, so all those in favor? Aye. I didn't say it out loud, just we're too fast. It was in my head, it was. Thank you all. That's because actually I was being whispered to something else and it drew me off, but that's okay. We're now going to go to item 8A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the proposed amendments for a lease agreement for the communications tower and 1,200 square feet of adjacent space with the Carson City Airport lease entered into between Sacramento Valley Limited Partnership and Verizon. Deputy DA Tully, do you have a correction? I'll pass that down. You need one? Doggone.
Sure. Hi, Adam Tully, Deputy District Attorney for the record. We've got, as late material here, a new signature page for the amended leases before you under this item. It's a technical correction that just allows for a single signature page to approve both lease amendments.
Is everyone clear? Yep. It only had one lease originally, and this corrects it to lease 1 and 2, or amendment 1 and 2. Yeah. Okay. Then we had a question from the public earlier that was concerned about the tower, its height, its magnetic range, and concerned that it was too close to mobile home parks or things of that nature. If you actually look at the maps and see all of the stamps and the tiny, tiny little print that is on those, they have to comply with all of the FAA and code requirements. So that will be handled in the actual engineering and verification that it meets the required distances, heights, rules, things that you were concerned of. And I agree, it's tiny little print in there, but they will have to comply with all the rules for that. So just wanted to answer that. Is there any other public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the amendments as presented, plural amendments.
I second.
Material.
Yeah, as presented. Let me turn the mic on. As presented in late material. Thanks.
Thank you.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we are on to item number 14. This is a discussion only. It's the presentation of our biannual report on the Carson City jail conditions and information concerning deaths of prisoners within the jail. I have Sergeant May, Lieutenant, doesn't say.
Good morning. I'm Captain Earl Mays
Captain, I knew it was higher. I thought this isn't right.
of the Carson City Jail. Good morning. I'm proud to present, we had no deaths for the year of 2023, actually, so we're doing pretty good. The state of our jail is we're moving along. We have our brand new padded cell. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
That's up and fully running and occupied as we speak. So,
I think it's important to note, just for the general public, that we do alternate and take turns as a board up here going through the jail and ascertaining if there's issues that need to be met during a visit. We were able to determine that we needed some additional resource.
correct.
And so the board does respond when we look at these issues, if we can. Some things might be outside of the reach, but the padded cell was something we all, as a team, did to do that. So Assistant Sheriff, I might get some titles, right? put them in these. Gonzalez, congratulations, right? You got a promotion.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Did you have comment?
No.
Or you're just here for questions? Well, we have to come up with something. Supervisor Giomi.
Well, I have a question, but I suspect Captain Mays is going to answer. Can you just give us an update on the fence?
The
While I'm
fence
thinking about it?
is completely finished.
Perfect.
It's up, it's erected, no issues.
Good.
And it looks beautiful.
Good.
I was gonna say, I just saw that the other day. I forgot to mention
Yeah,
it.
thank
Yay.
you. I keep forgetting to look when I drive by.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Yay.
update.
That's great. Okay. No other questions? Is there any public comment, anything out there? All right. Well, thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay. I put my glasses on. I can't see anything. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 15A, which is our action for our nominations for the Board of Supervisors for all of our annual appointments. So looking at this, let me just start off with, does everyone want to keep what they have? That's the first way to start this, and I understand it's a yes. Everybody wants to continue on. Mr. Horton, as the new one, would you like the appointments that your predecessor had? Would you like to take those?
I would be happy to take those appointments.
Yes, okay. Well, then we have this long laundry list here. Do you want me to do it, or I have it all filled out if
Oh,
you
you
just
do?
want to read it? Okay, I'll take the pleasure. It's so much fun to make us do more work than we start with. So let's, oh, I know it's your favorite. Okay, so I move to appoint Stacy Giomi as the Mayor Pro Tem for a 2-year term ending December 31, 2024. I move to appoint Lori Bagwell to the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024. Move Lisa Schutte to the Carson City Audit Committee for 1 year ending on December 31st, 2023. Should we change that to 9 years? Oh, sorry. Stacy Giomi to the Nevada Association of Counties for a 1-year term ending on December 31, 2023. Lori Bagwell as an alternate to the Nevada Association of Counties for 1-year term ending on December 31st, 2023. Lori Bagwell to the Nevada League of Cities Board of Directors for a 1-year term ending on December 31, 2023. Stacy Giomi to the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority for a 4-year term ending on December 31, 2026. Stacy Giomi to the Carson City Water Subconservancy District for a 4-year term ending on December 31, 2026. Maurice White to the Nevada Works for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024, December 31, 2024. Curtis Horton to the Carson City Airport Authority to fill an unexpired term ending January 1, 2025. Curtis Horton to the Carson City Debt Management Commission for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024. Curtis Horton to the Carson City Cultural Commission for an unexpired term ending on January 1, 2024. I'm going to assume we're okay with the continuance, everyone? Okay. Shelley Aldine to the TRPA for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024. Doug Martin to the NTCD for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024. And I move to nominate Kevin Hill to the TRPA for reappointment to serve as Carson City's lay member of the APC for a 2-year term ending on December 31, 2024.
And I will second and add my thanks on behalf of the board to Shelley, Doug, and Kevin for their continued efforts representing this body on those very important organizations.
Absolutely. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Mr. Horton, are you thank you. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you. We're now going to move to agenda item 15B, which is discussion and action regarding the appointment up to 4 members to the 911 Surcharge Advisory Committee, each for a term expiring in December 2024. Supervisor Giomi, may I have your disclosure?
Yes, Madam Mayor. NRS 281A-420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. Jim Powell is an applicant for appointment to the 911 Surcharge Committee. I've known Jim for over 40 years. When I joined the Carson City Fire Department, he was my first supervisor. We both retired from the fire department and remain friends. While I make this disclosure in the interest of full transparency, this friendship does not materially affect the independence of my judgment, and abstention is required only in clear cases. I do not, therefore, have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's start off with, are all three of them here for interview? We have Mr. Powell, McComber, and Fagone. Are they all here? Ms. Paulson? Are all three members for the airport, 911? I see the airport authority, sorry, he just came. Here for interview. Will you bring in Mr. Powell, please? Or he's here already, see him, sorry. Come on up. We'll go in order. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for coming out in the lovely weather.
Thank the city for making my road open.
There you go. There you go. Have you been through this before? For an interview?
I
Just
was
a-
on the, I forgot to put it in my application, but I was on the board of wildlife for the city.
Can you move that a little closer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what'll happen is we'll each just generally ask you a question, might not everyone always has one. And then when we get done with the interviews, we'll make the appointments, and you're welcome to stay since you're first, so you can hear them all if you'd like. So my question is, the 9/11 committee has a master plan. Do you think there's any updates that are needed to our system?
Can you turn your mic on?
There you go.
No light.
Now you're green. Green
Oh,
means go.
Okay, there it is. Thank you. So I try to follow the technology, and that's what's fascinating to me. Having started in the fire service in late 60s to now, over 50 years, is the technological advances from talking with a can and two strings, or up to now where 911 people can find you when you dial them and you don't know that. Some people do, some people don't. But it's fascinating to me. It's all about, in my opinion, it's about life safety. If I could just digress for a minute, historically, the fire department had two phone numbers, 7-digit phone numbers for emergency services, has appeared in the phone book. Sheriff had the same. I think theirs was 3451 and ours was 1661, which I believe still has to be in the phone book. I know that was part of the law when it was passed in 911. Not sure if it's still there today. So anyway, we've gone from that to where we're at now. Who'd have thought cell phones were going to be an issue, which they are in geolocations. So it's about life safety. It's about saving lives. And the faster we can get somebody to a victim, then that's the key to opening the door to bringing them back to life or saving them.
Great, thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi?
Thank you. So I have a scenario for you. There are 3 very important projects before the 911 Surcharge Committee for funding. However, there's only enough money in the account to fund one of those 3 projects. What criteria and thought process would you use to come to a resolution or a choice?
Shooting from the blind hip. I'd have to read them to see which one comes to the top. And it's not about me as much as it is the committee determining what's the best course, with input from the departments that are affected, obviously, sheriff, fire.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor White, do you have a question?
I have no questions.
Okay, Supervisor Horton, do you have a question?
What will you do to ensure that the 911 system and the associated dispatch and radio infrastructure systems remain current?
I think that's funding. It's all about funding. I did 28 plus years with the fire department here, It wasn't always a good funding routine. I spent a lot of time in this room playing roulette for the ad valorem cut. But having said that, there's been a big impetus since the 90s to support emergency services from where you sit, contrary to what it was done in the past. So to me, it's funding. If that issue comes to the top, decisions have to be made about the funding, and funding will drive the result.
Supervisor Schutte?
Thank you for applying. The 911 surcharge money allows for the purchase of equipment to transmit information from the emergency responder to the user or dispatch, or from the user to the emergency responder. What background do you bring that will help you make decisions regarding recommendations?
The 28 years with Carson Fire, from a firefighter to battalion chief level, the chief of operations. There is, I guess I could do it this way, 3 fire stations. One night I'm home and on duty as was prescribed. Station 1 went on a call, Station 2 went on a call, Station 3 went on a medical call. In 18 minutes, there was nothing left but me. I went to the next one, which is 4 minutes later, on a medical aid call with my command car. Being an EMT, that's the ticket, is getting somebody there, and then we'll deal with it. The beauty of the paramedic service is it's a mobile emergency room. So the first responders get there with the same equipment, mostly the same equipment that the ER has, and therefore they can administer the drug, shock the patient. How all that ties to 911 is getting there, getting back the information and getting the information processed in a timely manner to get them out.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Powell, for applying for this position. And I don't know, I have it on pretty good authority. You might get an appointment. And thank you, though, for that service in advance.
Thank
It's
you.
very important to fill our boards and commissions with interested parties and people with such expertise. So
Thank you. And I would say one more thing to Supervisor Giomi. I haven't got my arms wrapped around all the documents yet. Until I see if I get appointed, then I'll read them all, be able to answer your question better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. McComber? Morning. And if you'd state your name, then we'll get started.
Hi, good morning, Madam Mayor, Jed McCumber.
Good morning, Jed. Have you gone through this process before?
I have not.
Okay, so
Actually-
what's going to happen is we'll ask you a series of questions that we asked all candidates. And then upon the conclusion of that, you're welcome to stay in the audience because we'll have another individual to interview, and then we'll make our appointment decisions. So that's the process. So
Okay.
I'll start.
Thank you.
First with a thank you for applying. We really appreciate it. We need helpers. So do you believe we need any updates to our master plan for the 911 system?
I would say that I think it needs a review. As technologies are adapting very quickly and changing, the networks are changing. I was part of the AT&T process for submitting to get the first net through the government process, which is the dedicated network for 911 services, PSAP services and such, while I was at AT&T. We currently are moving a lot of our telephony systems onto the cloud and looking at cloud services and such. So, yes, always good to review.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi?
Jed, thank you for applying. Appreciate it. I have a scenario for you. You're on the committee. There are 3 important projects that the committee is considering funding. However, there's only enough money to fund one of those 3 projects. what criteria and thought process would you use to come to a resolution or make a choice?
Well, in my current role, I'm a vice president of customer service at Best Buy. I oversee 4 sites that are across the country with about 1,500 employees and constantly have those challenges. I oversee those types of challenges daily. Typically,
I may have to take your phone number down for the.
well, I don't deal with the stores. I'm on the health division, but I can help. You know, that's a great question. You just got to listen. You got to listen to everybody. You got to listen to all voices, and you got to weigh what the needs are of the business and prioritize them. And the priorities aren't typically yours to decide. They're yours to review and make a recommendation. You know, so I think if there were 3 priorities and we had to look at them, we'd say cost, you know, what's the best bang for your buck out of which ones you're going to get first, and can you look at the long-term plan, like what can you do next and lay them out in a long strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So much. Supervisor Horton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jed, what will you do to ensure that the 911 system and the associated dispatch and radio infrastructure system remains current?
So I am aware that Carson City currently uses the Priority Dispatch Pro QA system for their protocols. Not necessarily the telephony platform, but the protocol system in the dispatch centers. It's the same system we use, that I use across the nation in our system. So I guess I'd look at, you know, what updates are out there for the different systems. What is the cost to update those updates? You know, is there grants available? Is there things like that available? It's changing very fast. It changes constantly. You know, every 18 months, it's almost a rotation, and it's very difficult to keep current on a lot of this equipment. But I guess, you know, it's just a constant discipline of staying focused on it and looking to see where you're slipping behind, what areas you're slipping behind, listening to people that are actually using the systems, whether that is the citizens using them, whether it's government input, or whether it is the actual frontline dispatchers that are taking the input and taking the calls and such, and trying to pull all that together and focus on it and be able to, you know, push forward and lay out a plan.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte.
Thank you. Thank you for applying. 911 surcharge money allows for the purchase of equipment to transmit information from the emergency responder to dispatch and from dispatch to the emergency responder. What background do you bring that will help you make decisions regarding recommendations?
I have a kind of a unique, varied background. I started in a law enforcement career, going back to military, and after that left and went into the private sector. And so I've been in the private sector for decades now, working for Honeywell, AT&T, and now Best Buy, doing, you know, customer service, primarily focused on delivering telephony services. In addition to that, I did a lot of dispatch services, but on the private sector side. But if you look at the bottom of my resume there, there's a lot of different licensing that I went through. You know, I was licensed for years in New York City to dispatch in the boroughs, in the 5 boroughs, which if you've ever talked to New York City dispatchers, it's a unique experience. In California, in the state of California, I'm licensed currently. I kept it, my personal license, active there as a alarm company operator, which again, these are all private sector things, but we stay pretty connected and current on what's going on in the PSAPs and how they're, you know, because we're interacting with them and functioning. So I have a lot of experience being licensed in many different jurisdictions across the nation over the last couple decades. Although I'm only currently, to be transparent, licensed in 2. It's California and the state of Illinois. I'm a contract operator there as well. So it's probably not a direct experience. It's a kind of more of a private sector experience, but it does translate a little bit, and the telephony translates. Those platforms translate. We operate on 3 telephony platforms right now, 1 cloud and 2 premise platforms. And so the technology translates pretty well. I hope that answered. Yep, thank you.
Yes. And again, thank you so very much for applying. You're welcome to stay. We have 1 more to interview, and then we'll be making the appointments.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're thrilled to have people applying for the 911 Commission. Thank you. Hello. Come on up and take a seat. And then if you'll push the microphone button and release, it'll turn green and state your name for the record, and we'll get started.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Fagoni.
Good morning. Thank you so much for applying. I don't think you've been through this before for an appointment.
No.
Okay. So what we're going to do is just ask you a series of questions. And then once we complete the interview process, you are the last candidate. So then we as a board will make the appointments. Okay. So again, thank you so much for applying for this, and certainly have some, did I read on your resume, you're a Reno firefighter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so do you believe we need updates to our master plan, and if yes, what for 9/11?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I have not reviewed the master plan.
Okay, that's all right. Supervisor Giomi.
All right, so there's a scenario for you, Stephen. There are 3 very important projects that the 911 Surcharge Committee is considering funding. However, there's only enough money to fund 1 of the 3 projects. What criteria and thought process will you use to come to a resolution and make a recommendation?
So like all public entities, it's important to be fiscally responsible. So to answer your question, the project that will do the most amount of good will probably be the one that I would choose. So the one that will be the most fiscally responsible and will provide the most amount of good for the public.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Horton.
Good morning.
Morning.
What will you do to ensure that the 911 system and associated dispatch and radio infrastructure systems remain current?
By maybe perhaps collaborating with other departments, seeing what is the normal in Northern Nevada. I've been on the receiving end of a clunky dispatch system, and this is part of the reason why I decided to volunteer for this position is I have personal experience with a system that could be improved, and I feel that that would be, yeah, it's just important to have like the best system available for the boots on the ground.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte.
Thank you for applying. So 911 surcharge money allows for the purchase of equipment to transmit information from emergency responder to dispatch or from dispatch to the emergency responder. What background do you bring that will help make decisions regarding recommendations?
So my background with fire and EMS, I've been a firefighter paramedic for 3.5 years now. I've worked for wildland fire, and I most recently got a radio technician or radio certification, so I can go out on wildland assignments, operating from a dispatch center. So my experience is on the receiving end, talking to dispatch, and now also having a little bit of background with being in dispatch and dispatching resources on the fire. Does that answer your question?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Well, again, we want to thank you so much for offering to volunteer, and actually to everyone, because we have a couple other appointments today. It's so vitally important that those with skill sets in our community come and volunteer to help us on these boards and commissions. So I want to thank you in advance. And you're welcome to sit right there, so because you're the final interview.
Okay.
Do we have a motion for appointments? Is that Supervisor Giomi? Ready? Or Supervisor Shooty, beat you to the button. Okay.
Well, I just really appreciate all three candidates, and I'm just quite thrilled with the responses. Just the background knowledge, different background knowledge that collectively will really make for, I think, a great committee. So I move to appoint Denise Stewart and to appoint James Powell, Jed McComber, and Stephen Fagoni.
Yes, ma'am, Fagoni.
Oh, good, yay. Each for a full term expiring in December 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the appointment of Denise Stewart, James Powell, Jed McComber, and Steve Fagoni. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Sheriff, when do they have to get to work? Is it tomorrow is the first meeting? No. We often have that issue that we
Pretty
appoint people
close.
and they start the
Pretty
next
close.
day.
While I was listening to the interviews, I've already scheduled an appointment for, Lord, let me see here. Monday on January 16th at 1 p.m., we'll do an orientation with these gentlemen so that they have all of the information that is necessary. And the following week will be, the 24th of January will be their first meeting.
The 16th is a holiday, you realize.
Oh, I never do that.
Yeah.
I'll have to fix that. I'll get
Martin
with the
Luther
three.
King.
You guys
Sorry.
actually get holidays?
Yeah, no, you guys work 24/7.
You don't get a holiday.
Yeah.
We'll work it out. We will get.
But
all
I
with
knew it
all
was
three
going to
of
be
them.
quick.
Yeah,
But thank you all
you.
again so very much for helping your community. It's really appreciated. So thank you. What we're going to do is, I think, well, let me, how many are here for the Cultural Commission?
There are 4: Samuel, Bailey, Valerie, and Michael.
Samuel, Bailey, and Michael. So,
Valerie.
oh, and Valerie. So no Kylie and no Deborah.
Kylie couldn't make it today, and we hadn't heard back from Deborah.
Okay. What we're gonna do is just take a brief 5-minute recess because it might take us a little while to go through 4 interviews. And so we'll just be in recess just 5 minutes and then we'll do those things. Board of Supervisors back to order. We are on Agenda 15C, which is discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of up to, at this point, we're going to do 3 members because the 4th one we already did under the Board of Supervisors appointments. And so I also have a disclosure because this is a small community, so we all know everyone. NRS 281A 420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. Deborah Lambin and Michael Smith are applicants for appointment to the city's Cultural Commission. As to Miss Lambin, I have purchased her artwork in the past and enjoyed socializing with her occasionally over the past several years. NRS 281A 420 only requires abstention in clear cases and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by this friendship. As to Mr. Smith, during the 2020 election cycles, I hired and paid a business operated by Mr. Smith to design and work on my campaign websites and campaign materials. That arrangement ended with the end of the election cycle. NRS 281A 420 only requires abstention in clear cases and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by this past business relationship. While I make these disclosures in the interest of full transparency, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter. I don't think anyone else had any. Okay, so first up, we have Sam Flackus. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you state your name for the record and then we'll...
My name is Samuel Flakis.
Okay. Have you been through this process before?
I have. I was here last year. Yes.
Okay, so you know we're gonna do a round table of questions and then we'll bring the next person in and the next person in, and you're welcome to stay.
Okay.
If you'd like, because you were the first one, so you can hear them all if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
I will.
Great. And again, thank you so much for applying. We really appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure's mine.
One of the goals of this particular board is to serve as a coordinator and catalyst, bringing government and arts and culture and community and the public together to benefit the arts. That's its overarching goal. Can you give me an idea on how you would help meet this goal?
Yeah. We have we have a lot of different entities that are connected with the city and a lot of separate entities that are not connected with the city at all. Thinking of the Brewery Art Center and also individual art collectors and people who commission artists. So to me, the easiest thing is to bring those entities together and also take advantage of assets that the city actually owns. There are so many things that we love about this city that we want to protect and develop, but they may not necessarily be owned by the city. So we have to work with what we have. My own previous experience with finding things to paint on essentially are utilitarian things. So I have the experience of having worked on a transformer on 5th and Carson, something that normally, isn't something muralable. Something that isn't special, make it special. But it's something that's going to be there, and so you can just work with it. There's no asset acquisition. Nobody has to buy the thing. It's already there. For my day job, my seasonal job, I actually work for Carson City Public Works, and I paint fire hydrants. I did not get to choose the color. I don't get to change the color. They tell me what to paint it. However, if you went up the chain of command to the fire department and Public Works, if there was some either private funding or a grant or something like that that would allow for me or someone else to be able to paint something special at the that would be it the public interest, kind of forward our cultural identity. Maybe that's something that could happen, but that's just an example. There are so many things like pump houses and things that we wouldn't normally see as being special. There are artists around who we can get together and be able to beautify those things to make a more beautiful city, as it were.
Oh, thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi.
Thank you, Samuel, for replying. I appreciate your time here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of the ways that our community can demonstrate the importance of culture through art.
Well, I think that there are a lot of things that we find special around here that other developers, like outside money, come in and they don't appreciate. So I think it needs to be known what's special to us. That's, hits at the heart of us as a community. We love our open spaces. I can't speak for everyone, but I love our cottonwood trees. Not everyone loves cottonwood trees. I love our cottonwood trees. And so a lot of things get torn down or obliterated just because the new owner just had no idea, why it was special to the community. And probably just out of honest ignorance, they just didn't know. And I think that it's important for us to make it known as the commission what things are special to us architecturally, historically, environmentally, things like that, and identifying those things that are special. Just the color, red oxide, it's just a shade of red brown. It shouldn't be that special. Well, it has a lot to do with the V&T's use as a preservative of wood. It's just an example, but that color translates, and that would be something that would be considered special. Sometimes subtle things, I think, are something that need to be shown to people who want to contribute to this community, but do it in a way so that they feel welcomed, but they're also not stepping on our toes as a culture.
Supervisor White.
Thank you. Morning, Sam.
Good morning.
Carson City Municipal Code 1.06 calls out the city's official symbols and mottos. Do you have a sense on how that can be used within the Carson City Arts Master Plan?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at it right now. Here's the great seal of the municipality of Carson City, Nevada. It shows me. There's an eagle, there's the Inyo, there's Pony Express Rider. Those are good examples showing like those are official symbols that we really like about this place. I think that's pretty well defined. I don't think that maybe totem poles would be a good expression of what Carson City is or represents. I was at a roundtable meeting for the roundabout on Stewart Street, and the question came up: hey, do we want to put a totem pole in the middle of this roundabout? And the discussion kept on for 5 or 10 minutes, and then somebody said, does the Washoe tribe actually do totem poles? And the answer is no. So those are things that probably should be thought of as something that would be important to a culture. I don't know much about Indian art, so why would I answer to that? Maybe you should go ask the Indians what's actually special to them.
Right.
So that's what I think.
Thank you.
Supervisor Horton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sam, what will you do to promote the cultural environment, stimulate the economic development, and promote cultural tourism?
Well, I think that art, especially local art that is made by artists who live here and who study the stories of where we live, who hear from people who have been here long before us, who actually read into the history of the area. I think that those things add to what has evolved to become the brand of the city. And sometimes people get upset when they, when either, what's the Nevada State Tourism body? Anyway, sometimes they will go to an outside contractor in order to make a banner or something, and then it's clear that they really had no idea what it was that actually represents the state of Nevada. I can't think of a specific example, but there's sometimes where it's pretty apparent that it was somebody from out of state or whatever. They had no idea really what makes it special. People who live here really get what is special about Carson City. And I moved here to Carson City from Alpine County, California, right after high school because I could see how special it was in its architecture and just the mood of the way that the trees cast tunnel-like shadows on the streets. Like those are things I think about that they're subtle. But all the parts add to the whole of the brand of the soft spot that people feel for living here. And I think that is something that should be tapped into in understanding how we come up with branding and how we promote ourselves in a tourism sense. In a way that's not tacky, but that also gets the job done and something that we can be proud of.
That's great. Thank you very much, and thank you for your effort on the fire hydrants. You've done a great job.
We do have one pink one. Oh, sorry.
Uh,
On
we-
Main Street, we have a pink one, but anyway.
I did not take that one out. I was not responsible.
That's not you? Okay. Supervisor Shooty.
I'm feeling the weight of being the fifth person asking because I do have all my questions.
I'll hear 'em all.
So you have really spoken to all of them, but I will make this one work. So in the findings supporting the creation of the Cultural Commission, it is noted that an increase in cultural amenities is crucial to further stimulate economic development and redevelopment. What do you consider to be cultural amenities, and how might our community increase these?
Cultural amenities, as in assets, like things that are special to us that need promoting and protecting and being put to the forefront. Is that what you mean?
Yes, and you opened speaking a little bit to that, or so yeah.
A lot of the things that I think are cultural amenities are a lot of things that the city doesn't own that grants should be awarded to or money should be appropriated to. The thing that always sticks out in my mind and everybody's mind probably is the Carson City Engine House, the V&T Engine House. It had a out-of-state owner for decades who did not take care of it, and then it was the city's responsibility to just watch from the outside and just watch it rot for 40 years. And the city didn't own it. There wasn't anything they could do about it. Everybody stays away from eminent domain. Mayor Bob told me a few years ago, you don't get into eminent domain, you just avoid it at all costs. And pretty much everybody has told me the same thing, you just stay away from eminent domain. No matter what. So it's tricky because there are individual property owners here and you can't just tell someone what to do with their property. And it goes into the, you have to get philosophical about property rights. Can you make someone take care of their house that's special to everyone else except for that owner? Think about the Ormsby House. It's just sitting there and we're all just watching it, and there isn't anything that anybody can do about it because we don't own it. You know, the public does not own it. So I think that's why it's important to find things that the city does own that we know that we can do something about and coordinate with other private property owners who are willing to participate. Good example, I worked with Andy Font, who owns Abraham Curry's house. She wanted me to do another drawing for her for promotional purposes of her house. And she got no help from the city, and she didn't need it. She just let me in and tour the place, and I was totally honored to be in there and be able to sketch that up and make good promotional materials for her and be in the room that the Carson City Engine House was designed in. That was pretty special. She didn't need anybody's help. You know, she was able to just pull it off, and we need to promote those people. So I think, yeah, you have to be willing to invite people to participate in the greater goal of the arts.
Okay, again, thank you so very much for interviewing with us today. You're welcome to stay and listen to the other interviews, and then at the conclusion, we'll make our decisions. And
Okay.
thank you again
Thank you
so
very
very
much.
much. Mhm. Okay, I think Ms. Paulson went to get Bailey. Hello, Bailey. It's already green, so if you'd state your name for the record, then we'll.
Good morning, Bailey Spear.
Good morning. I want to thank you so much for coming for an interview and
Thank you.
wishing to volunteer for us. We really appreciate that. Have you been through this process
I
before?
have not.
So what will happen is we will ask each of us a question, and then at the conclusion of the interview process, we will move on to the next one, and you are welcome to stay.
Okay.
At the conclusion of the final interview, then we'll be making our appointment.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so I'll start with the first one. The goal of commissioners on this is to serve as a coordinator and catalyst, bringing government and the arts and culture community and public together to benefit the arts. Can you give me an idea on how you would help meet this goal?
Yeah, for sure. So, as a younger person, I can definitely bring the youth aspect into bringing in youth into our government, which I think is something that we usually don't see a lot of. We don't see young people participating in government hardly ever. And so I would like to do that. And also, as being a performer for over, oh geez, how long has it been? Like 16 years now. I definitely have respect to the performing arts, and also as a ceramics artist myself, I can bring a lot of artistic ability into the governmental scape, which I think is very important into the Cultural Commission.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi?
Hi, Bailey. Thanks. I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of the ways that our community can demonstrate the importance of culture through art.
Yeah, for sure. So the importance of culture, I think culture is everywhere. It's around us all the time, and it's something that's overlooked a lot of the times. We overlook culture and we push it to the background because it's something that's really not important, or we think it's not important. But I think that bringing culture through art, and one of the examples of that would be bringing in the Latinx community that Carson does have a big population of into the performing arts spaces, because right now they are underserved into the performing arts, just because either Spanish is their first language and all of the flyers and all of the things and all of the resources are given in English. So I think that bringing in different populations would help bring in culture into the performing arts spaces of Carson City.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor White?
Thank you. Good morning, Bailey.
Good morning.
Carson City Municipal Code 1.06 calls out the official symbols and mottos of Carson City. Do you have a sense of how that fits into the Carson City Arts Master Plan?
Could you repeat the question?
Carson City Municipal Code 1.06 calls out the official symbols and mottos of Carson City. Do you have a sense of how that fits into the Carson City Arts Master Plan?
I do not. I would say that bringing in official symbols into would bring in a part of our culture, especially with. Oh, geez, this is a difficult question. Sorry. I would say that bringing in our symbols is a way of bringing culture. Honestly, I don't think I'm well versed enough to give that answer. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Horton?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Bailey, what will you do to promote a cultural environment that stimulates economic development and cultural tourism?
For sure. So I think that as a city, we have so many interesting places and so many interesting cultural hub spots, but there's obviously room for more. When you go to, so one of the things that I like to go to personally is a poetry night up in Reno. And those nights are really beneficial to me as a person, and they really restore my peace. But I think that bringing some areas like that to Carson City would, one, not only encourage economic growth by bringing in tourism and people coming to go to those culture nights and going to those activities, but also it would also just bring, because you want to be in an area where you're going to vibe. I know that vibes are very important, but you want to be in an area where you're going to be happy and have different areas that you can enrich your mind, because as human beings, we want to enrich our minds and become greater human beings. So I think that bringing more areas of culture into Carson City and more areas where we can have artists meet and gather would be really important and beneficial to boosting the economic growth of Carson City.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Schutte?
Welcome, Bailey, and thank you so much for applying.
Thank you.
So in the findings supporting the creation of the Cultural Commission, it's noted that an increase in cultural amenities is crucial to further stimulate economic development and redevelopment. So I'm wondering, what do you consider to be cultural amenities? And how might a community like ours increase them?
I think cultural amenities are areas where artists can meet, like the Brewery Arts Center. I think that is a wonderful space that Carson City has. I have performed there several times myself, and I'm performing there currently. And it is a gorgeous space that is severely underrepresented. I feel that there's a lot of funding to it, but I feel like there could be more. And bringing more spaces like that, not only for performing arts, but for visual arts. I know that we don't really have areas to really like just meet as artists and paint, and meet in artists and gather for literary arts. I feel like more areas for more diverse aspects of art would be very beneficial for Carson City.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, Bailey, we really want to thank you for applying for
Thank you
this,
so
and you're
much.
welcome to stay
Yes,
while
for
we
sure.
interview the others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Morning. Would you please just push it again? It'll stay green. There you go. And if you'll state your name for the record, then we'll get started.
Valerie Moore.
Great. Valerie, I want to thank you so much for applying for this position. Have you ever applied for a Board of Commission before?
I have not.
So the process is that each of us will ask you a question, And then upon the conclusion of your interview, you're welcome to stay in the audience while we complete the interviews that will happen after yours. And then the board will make a decision on who to select. So thank you again so much for doing this. So one of the goals of the commission for this is to serve as a coordinator and catalyst, bringing government and the arts and culture community and public together to benefit the arts. Can you give me an idea of how you would help meet this goal?
Yes, I have worked very closely with the City of Reno, the City of Sparks, and Washoe County in creating citywide events downtown for, it's been almost a decade, so it's been a long time. So I think it's about getting the pulse of the community and then bringing in the local business owners so that everybody's invested in these events. It's really, and I feel like in Carson City, living here, I think there's a big hunger for that kind of stuff and to bring more of that, the activities and it's something to do every weekend kind of thing downtown.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Giomi?
Thank you, Valerie, for applying. Appreciate it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of the ways that our community can demonstrate the importance of culture through art.
I think the best way to do that is to bring other cultures to the community with using art as a vessel. So like in the past that we've done an art festival, but we bring in artists from different regions of Nevada, different cultures, but we do it through art. So people are like, I'm going to an art festival. But in doing that, they're meeting different groups from different areas. And a lot of those people are local that they might not be aware that are in their community.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wade?
Thank you. Morning, Valerie.
Good morning.
Carson City Municipal Code 1.06 calls out the city's officials' mottos and symbols. Do you have a sense in how that fits into the Carson City Arts Master Plan?
I do not, because I'm not familiar with that. So,
thank you.
Supervisor Horton?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Valerie, what will you do to promote a cultural environment that stimulates economic development and cultural tourism?
I would involve the local business owners if in any sort of a cultural event and stuff that we bring into the downtown. By getting them involved, I think we can bring in more money for the event, depending on, what kind of event it is. But, if we could make it stay in Carson and, make it a multi-day thing, kind of thing like that. So I would try to involve local business as much as possible.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte?
Thank you so much for applying. In the findings supporting the creation of the Cultural Commission, it is noted that an increase in cultural amenities is crucial to further stimulate economic development and redevelopment. So I'm wondering, what do you consider to be cultural amenities, and how might we increase such amenities?
I would say cultural amenities would be providing different perspectives for everybody in our community. A lot of that can be done through art. Murals are something that we've worked with a lot. We've worked in Fernley. I've worked in Fernley with different mural festivals. We've done them in Elko, as well as Reno. So that just seeing other cultures, I think that is the number one amenity to bring into a culture. I don't know that it has to be anything more than seeing yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again so very much for applying for this position. And again, you're welcome to stay in the audience and listen to our, I think we have one more, final interview, and then we'll make our selection. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, Michael. If you would push the button and state your name for the record, then
Oh, yeah.
you've been through this.
Yeah, I've been through this. Good morning. My name is Michael Smith, for the record.
Thank you so much. Again, you've been through this, you've served on redevelopment and things,
Yes.
so let me just jump right in with my question for you.
Absolutely.
One of the goals for this commission is to serve as a coordinator and catalyst, bringing government and the arts and culture, community, and public together to benefit the arts. Can you give me an idea on how you'll help meet this goal?
Yes, good question. So I think it's really for this commission, this culture commission, to really elevate the public realm about the opportunities and being able to bring in the arts, the culture, programming, the community aesthetics, the historical preservations, including relevant to citizens as well as the visitors. It's important that the commission work very closely with the Board of Commissioners and see what areas are identified can be, being able to keep those existing programs, but also add in additional programs as well, so it can fit into the realm of humanities, fine arts, cultural arts, and the resources and the cultural resources that Carson City here has to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Giomi.
Thank you, Michael, for applying. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of the ways that our community can demonstrate the importance of culture through art.
Mhm. Well, Commissioner Giomi, it's very important that all cultures and social institutions and achievements in any particular nation and people or other social groups need to be intertwined in the arts of Carson City. I think it's important that when you think of culture, you think of social institutions, you think of people, you think of resources, and all of that is very vital and important to make sure that we encompass that into the cultural arts. Diversity is very, very important. We have to be inclusive. We have to make sure that everything that we do addresses or speaks to the diverse histories, the beliefs, and cultures of the citizens. And so that's my take on that question. I hope this sort of answer it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Supervisor White.
Thank you. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Carson City Municipal Code 1.06 calls out the official mottos and symbols of Carson City. Do you have a sense of how that fits into the Carson City Arts Master Plan?
Well, I'm not familiar with the 1.6 models and symbols that you just mentioned, but I'm pretty sure if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to this commission, I would certainly look into that and familiarize myself with that. But sure, it should be incorporated into the master plan because, again, you want to make sure we elevate and recognize the importance of the cultural arts and what it has to offer in the city, and making sure that we embrace and engage everyone in this process, because really the culture is the backbone, in my opinion, of any city. You have to make sure that we incorporate those beliefs and those different programs and those different social mediums that will be very, very important to the citizens of Carson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Horton.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning. Congratulations on your supervisory position as well. Thank you. Mhm. Michael, what will you do to promote a cultural environment that stimulates economic development and cultural tourism? Oh, for sure, you have to have the willingness to obtain grants that may be available. Look into those resources that we can be able to assist the Culture Commission with. We know it's not a large budget that they have to work with, so we will look in those opportunities of grants and other opportunities that are available to assist the Culture Commission and making sure we broaden and expound the different opportunities of the Culture Commission here within Carson City. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, Supervisor Schutte.
Hello, Michael.
Good
and
morning.
welcome, and thank you for applying.
Thank you.
In the findings supporting the creation of the Cultural Commission, it is noted that an increase in cultural amenities is crucial to further stimulate economic development and redevelopment. What do you consider to be cultural amenities, and how might Carson City increase them?
Well, cultural amenities, again, it can be a vast array of things. I look at the schools, the education component, how we can engage the K-12 aspect of it, how we can look at the current programs that we already have, but also make sure that we expound on those. It's important that we have to look at the master plan to see exactly how and what it addresses when it comes to the Culture Commission, how we can integrate that or augment that into the existing Culture Commission policy and plan, and apprise the board, of any changes or any new developments of what we see as areas that we can really change, and maybe we can look at the gaps and look at how can we improve it, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are able to embrace all of these social institutions, everyone when it comes to cultural, arts, music, because, I look at the many activities that take place here in Carson City, not necessarily just the taste of downtown. We have the Brewery Arts Center, we have the music, the Carson City Symphony, we have the choir, we have the choir. So there's a lot for a city with about 60,000 plus population has to offer. And we want to make sure we attain that and make sure we attract individuals. Everything don't have to happen at Reno. We can bring people to Carson City to show what we have here when it comes to the arts and culture. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again
you.
for interviewing with us. You're welcome to stay. We're at the tough part now where we have to, let me just double check that the other two, just as one last call, for Kylie Howard and Debbie Lambin. No? Okay, I just wanted to double check on that. So we have 3 positions that are available to be filled, and we had 4 candidates. We have a board and commission policy that discusses eligible candidates for positions, and we are reviewing an issue. Mr. Flackus is a paid intern for the city and therefore is considered an employee, even though he's just an intern for a point. So I want to bring that up. I have clarified, and I need to just confirm with him that you work for the water distribution. So I do not believe he has the conflict of public works being in control of this commission, because that's one thing in our policy. We do not ever appoint employees that are within the span of control of the commission. So I have validated that he's in the water distribution unit, and therefore that does not disqualify him. We have another policy in there that indicates we want to provide preference to non-employees. We have not defined that we can't appoint an employee, but I just offer that up for the board for discussion and just in full transparency on this whole issue. So with that, do we have a pleasure for appointment? Oh, I like it. Put him on the hot spot right off the top. That Curtis, delivery. These are our hardest decisions always because we have great candidates. Every one of you could do a superior job. So it's like, uh-oh, I like it. Curtis. Yeah.
Thanks, Stacy.
He can take it.
Well, I think all the candidates are excellent, and I appreciate the effort that they put into it here today. From my perspective, when I look at it, I'm big into community and the things that make us the community that we are, the current amenities, the future amenities, things that speak to our history, that make us feel like it's home. Carson City has a great history, and I look forward to continuing that and exploiting that awesome history for our future. I would like to recommend my top 3 candidates. I would like to recommend Michael Smith, Valerie Moore, and Sam Plekas. I think they embodied what the community is about, the history of the community. They all spoke to that. And I feel like they have the artful eye that I have as well.
Okay. Supervisor Giomi, since he threw that hard one to you, has agreed to go next.
Yeah, I'll go next. Sorry, Kurt, but I just, I just thought you needed to work a little bit. I have a little bit of a disagreement. I do agree with Sam. I do agree with Mike. I think we've talked before about trying to engage our younger citizens in activities, and Bailey represents that to me. And I believe that the three of them, and this is not a dig on Valerie, but those three that I mentioned, Sam, Bailey, and Michael, are all already connected to the arts community in this city. Valerie's definitely connected to the arts community, but to me it feels, even though she's a resident here, it feels like to me more of that connection happens in Washoe County. So for that reason, I would go with Sam, Bailey, and Michael.
Okay. Does somebody want to go next? Lisa?
I'll go.
All right.
Do we have a sense why the other applicants didn't show up today? Is it a weather-related situation? We just a no-show?
One no-show, one potentially weather.
Okay. I think my top three are kind of, again, like the last time we had appointments. I'm on opposite ends of the spectrum, for my opinion. I really believe that Sam Flakus and Mike Smith bring that local knowledge of what's going on here. But then with Valerie Moore, I think it's appropriate that we insert some experience from somewhere else, the way somebody else has been doing it, rather than trudging down the same old trench. So those would be my top three.
Okay. So we have Sam and Michael for sure, because that's 3 votes. So now we're down. Lisa, you may put your top 3 or discuss your one that you want to.
Yeah, this is
champion.
really tough.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you, everyone. And I really was hoping that everybody would show up for several reasons. We just had amazing candidates, and also when it is, in this case, 3 spots and 4 applicants, when all 4 really have something quite special to bring, it's not a comfortable position to be in up here, but I guess this is the fun we signed up for. You know what? Samuel Flakus, I am so impressed with what you had to say. I really appreciate, when you said take advantage of city-owned assets, and the murals on items that one doesn't think of as a canvas. I just think that was really, that's wonderful, that we can put art, art really can fit everywhere, and the different perspectives of art. And I also support Michael's position in, thank you for what you do in terms of the perspective, talking about intertwining, encompassing diversity, music background, all of that. I have to say this was really, really hard, but I am leaning toward the youth side of this in terms of embracing our young artists and our young perspectives, and that isn't when the involvement with Wild Horse Theater, enriching minds, when you spoke to that and opening up those doors in a way that I don't think we typically think about with art. And, even speaking to the poetry, that was really quite wonderful. So while I am putting my third choice to Bailey Spears, Valerie Moore, I just think you're amazing, and what you are also the information, the background that you would bring. It is difficult to not include you. So anyway, those are my three.
Well, darn, now I'm on the hot seat.
You should have taken.
I should have taken it first.
You should have gone first.
I should have taken first. So, the real, obviously, I'm in support of Michael and Sam. The question becomes which of the other two great candidates, because they're both, like you said, they bring something so different to this. And so I'm left with which one do I feel will bring more to the goals, objectives of the Arts and Culture Commission? Which one will actually further it for the benefit of the public? And that's a really hard decision for me to make, is which one's going to bring a different flavor or be able to expand it, which one's going to connect with the community, which one's going to talk more into understanding the arts and wanting to get involved in the arts. And so that's really where my defining answer is going to come for my decision. And so I looked at Bailey and thought, what does she bring that can grow the commission? And I thought, okay, that's the youth group. Maybe she can bring more of the youth and the vitality into the community to grow that. And then I looked at Valerie, and her answer really dealt with, I can grow it by businesses, grow it by extending the number of days that an event is here. I look at her experience in Reno and Fernley and the other areas, and I admit that I want to steal all that knowledge, right? Because knowledge is what grows committees, commissions, boards, and opportunities. And so I really weighed those together. And so I think that we, as this still young, new commission, that we really need to grow it, and we really need to be able to emphasize arts and culture in our community. And so maybe I want to say, for right now, I think that person is Valerie, to be able to grow where we're going. But I do not want Bailey to feel disenfranchised at all, because she was so wonderful. And, but for now, I think that Valerie is the missing link on our Arts and Culture Commission. So I'm going to select Michael, Sam, and Valerie. And so therefore we have at least 3 for each of those. So Supervisor Giomi, a motion, please.
I'm happy to do a motion. Before I do that, I would like to thank Karen Aboud, who really did yeoman's work over years and years on this board and getting the Cultural Commission going. And so a big tip of the hat to her. Big shoes to fill for those of you who are getting appointed today. I move to appoint Valerie Moore for a partial term that expires in January of 2025, and Samuel Flakus and Mike Smith for terms that expire in January of 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Great job, each and every one of you. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 16A. Discussion and possible action regarding an application from Roseview Townhomes for their final subdivision map. Ms. Ferris.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, for the record. This is a request for a final subdivision map for the subdivision known as Roseview Townhomes. It is located at the corner of West College Parkway and Oak Ridge Drive, adjacent to John Mankins Park. and will result in 52 lots for attached single-family residences and common area. The Board of Supervisors approved the original tentative map at their August 19th, 2021 meeting, and subsequently approved an amendment to the conditions of approval on October 20th of 2022. Final subdivision maps must be reviewed and approved by the board. Your packet contains a memo which addresses compliance with the conditions of approval. Staff has found that the developer has met all conditions of approval and has posted securities for the required site improvements, and we're recommending approval of the final subdivision map.
Thank you.
We're available for questions.
Does any member have a question? Nope. Don't see any questions. Is there any public comment on this item? Ms. Go.
Heather Coe for the record. I just want to know how you're going to squeeze these in. I mean, the one on the opposite side, okay, it was a miracle. And I don't know, and I think it was the parking lot that was open space. So how do you expect to squeeze that many more homes in on roughly the same size lots? So I just don't understand how that's possible without making it look like the wrecking ball Carson City is already turning into. And we already have problems with our roads, apparently. So when are these developers really going to put the money in to help with that? Because I also find that to be a huge issue. Instead of, I know will be coming up soon, is putting a gas tax because things were mismanaged with money. So I would like to know why developers are allowed to do their own impact reports and why things like this are going through against the will of the people. And yes, I live there, so I have spoke to almost all my neighbors. So that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Mr. French?
Fall right in, sorry. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, Mayor and Board. I have to ditto the last statements, but I also would like to add that there is an issue in my mind about the conflict between what I think is Title 18 and Title 17. In that one will say 1 house per acre, the other says because of a special use consideration from Title 17, these things are appropriate, and then you can put high density or whatever. And I think it's with me, but I think there are others that have the same considerations of how come they're in conflict? Should they be in harmony as they're supposed to be working together with the master plan? And I don't really see a set master plan, and that is disturbing as well. That seems to be fluent as to the considerations of contractors that are coming in from outside that have really no appreciation for the culture, the tomography, the natural resources, and a lot of other considerations. Lampa is a perfect example of that. It's a water wetway, it's a floodplain, and yet it's been allowed. Not only has it been allowed, but at a density that's incredibly insane, in my opinion. And it was a sad thing to have to watch the process go through to get to that point without more involvement from the community. And so any development right now is really sort of one of those things where I'm right on top of it, trying to be observant, trying to be patient, and not be anti-growth or anti-contractors or developers, but pro-Carson City. And we're talking about cultural heritage, we're talking about the arts. What makes this place special is the surroundings and the people in it. It doesn't mean we're not open to people coming in. I'm from California. I came up to help with my parents. It was not a location I had dreamt to come to or even looked forward to, but I've grown to love it. And I think every move we make as far as allowing development needs to be carefully considered. And I appreciate your time and your efforts, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. French. Do I have any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Mr. Supervisor Horton.
I move to approve the final subdivision map as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the final subdivision map. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you so much, Heather. Should we take just a brief and then get into the final one on the dog policy? Yeah, we'll take just a brief recess and then we'll let them set up for the dog. the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're now on agenda item 17A, which is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed resolution exempting certain parks, trails, and open space from the municipal code 13.02.090 to allow dogs and a proposed dog rules and regulations policy. Ms. Budge, I believe you'll start it out, and then welcome Ms. Boyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Board of Supervisors, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just want to start off by thanking the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Open Space Advisory Committee, the hundreds of residents that provided feedback in person over 9 meetings over a 2.5-year period for all their time, and then the staff that are here as well. We put in a lot of time and effort in trying to consider all sides of the story. Dogs are a very emotional topic to people. I am personally a dog owner myself, but I've also had 2 of my children have been bit by off-leash dogs in parks before, and it's very scary. It's a real thing that does happen, and we want to try to make people feel safe when they go to our parks and have a variety of options for people to go to. So Lindsay Boyer, our open space manager, is going to walk you through the policy and the resolution, and we welcome your feedback and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Boyer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Board of Supervisors. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. As Jen mentioned, I have a PowerPoint prepared for you that just kind of walks through some of the history and the high points of the policy, and then we'll take some questions. So the purpose of the policy is to provide consistent public education and enforceable regulations related to dog use throughout Carson City's park system. We mentioned Municipal Code 13.02.090, which prohibits dogs in all Carson City parks. This municipal code is outdated and was likely put in place when Carson City was smaller and had very few parks or open space properties. Now we have over 8,000 acres of parks and open space, and so a policy and a resolution is needed in order to provide more clarity for the public and staff about where they can and can't take their dogs. So I don't want to read the whole language, but I did want to put this up for you guys so you can kind of see the specific language within that municipal code. And I also wanted to highlight that it does include a provision that the Board of Supervisors may exempt certain parks or areas from the provisions of this code. So as a part of this whole process, we looked into neighboring communities and other agencies to look at what they did as far as dogs were concerned. It is variable depending on the agency, but for the most part, all of these agencies have some form of a leash requirement. It may not be in all areas, but there is that provision in most areas within their counties or their jurisdictions. As far as the current practices within Carson City, they are quite variable. So as of right now, Carson City has 15 parks that allow dogs. 6 of them require dogs to be on leash at all times. We have 16 parks that don't allow dogs. Some big examples include Mills Park, Carriage Square, or our sports complexes. Within the open space side of things, we currently have 3 trails where dogs are prohibited or leashes are required. That's only 2.6 miles out of over 100 miles of trail where we have any regulations as far as open space is concerned. And we do have 2 current off-leash dog parks, Fuji Dog Park and Sonoma Park, as well as the Lampa Ranch East development, which is planned. So these practices were put in place by the previous Parks Administration. I believe they were put in place as kind of a trial to see how things worked, but it was never codified with the Board of Supervisors. So these current practices are definitely inconsistent and confusing, both for the public as well as staff. So it's a hard time for the public to know where they can go, and it's hard for the park rangers to communicate and enforce these rules. So Jen mentioned that this has been a long process, over 2 years that we've been discussing the tenets of this policy. She mentioned we've had 9 total meetings between the Parks and Recreation Commission and Open Space Advisory Committee, both separately and together. In June 2021, we also put out a public survey. At that time, It was the most respondents we've ever received on a survey. I think since then, some master plans have exceeded that, but it was very well responded to, and we had gotten responses from both dog owners and non-dog owners, so it was a pretty good representation. As far as the policy that we've come up with is concerned, I just kind of wanted to highlight that there's, a few different components to it. So there's the policy itself. There's the draft resolution that would go along with it. We also have created a map that would go along with the policy, as well as a park system list that lists very clearly what the regulation would be for that area. We've also created a map of all the dog waste receptacles throughout our park system. And then lastly, there is an old resolution from 2005 included in there as well. So just to kind of get into the bare bones or meats and potato of the policy, it really gets into, where dogs will remain prohibited, and then it gets into, where we'd like to start allowing dogs per the policy, both on leash and off leash. So, and this ties into the park system list as well as the map. So dogs will remain prohibited in special use facilities, buildings, sports complexes, places like that. We already aren't allowing dogs in those areas, so that it's not really a change. As far as dogs being allowed on leash, this will be in yellow, and this will tie to a map on the next slide. So that's going to be the majority of our parks and trailheads, as well as environmentally sensitive wetlands and trails. And then as far as allowing for dogs off leash, this is going to be most of our open space areas and trails. So we've created this map that would go along with the policy. We heard from the public that, if this policy is approved, they really like to see this be an interactive map, which I think is a great idea, something that we could post to our website that would allow users to zoom in and look more closely at their specific neighborhood or their area of interest. But this kind of ties into the color coding that I was just mentioning. And, we are allowing dogs in a good portion of our park system. A lot of these green areas are open spaces. And then a lot of those red areas, again, are areas where we have already prohibited dogs. And then I wanted to call out, there's a little icon, it's a little hard to see, but it does say TH. Those are our trailheads, so it indicates where we'd want to have dogs on leash at our trailheads just for safety purposes. Going into the resolution a little bit, that's another piece that would go along with this policy. The resolution would be exempting certain parks and open space areas from the restrictions that are called out in the municipal code. So this resolution has a list of locations where dogs would remain prohibited. So again, special use facilities, sports complexes, buildings, pastures. But it also does reference the policy and the parks list that identifies those locations that would be exempt from the restrictions of the municipal code, if we were to approve it as exempted by the board. Oh, and I wanted to note that there is an error in the resolution that we identified. Number 2 in the resolution calls out the incorrect code. It should be 1302.090. It says 1301.090, so that will need to be corrected. The policy also talks about an education campaign that we would like to implement. A lot of this is stuff that we've already been doing that we'll be continue implementing. But really it gets down into encouraging responsible pet ownership and best management practices. Additionally, any education that would surround these change of policies would emphasize education first before enforcement. We really want to focus on positive messaging and informing the public where they can take their pet. But some examples of some of the education aspects that we've done adoption events in partnership with the Nevada Humane Society, kind of a Trails and Tales event where you can take a hike with a dog and maybe adopt one while you're there. We've also done a bunch of PSAs over the years, videos, and various reference documents about dog etiquette, dog waste. I'm sure you all have seen the famous Poop Fairy video. So we'll continue putting out that kind of content to try to educate the public. And I do have a YouTube link here to a video we've done in the past, if interested. As far as priorities and costs, if the policy was approved, our fiscal year 24 priorities would be fencing the playground at Long Ranch. That was something we heard from a lot of residents when they came out to provide comment, so that off-leash activity could continue at Long Ranch, but also protect, our youth. We also would be looking at adding some fencing at Ronald D. Wilson, so that could become kind of an off-leash area. And then Mills Park, pending the approval of the master plan update, there could be a off-leash dog park at that location. I did want to throw in some tentative costs. Obviously, if this is approved, we'll have to build these into our budget depending on priorities, but just to give you a sense. So we would need to start adding dog waste stations at parks where dogs aren't currently allowed. So a dog waste station is about $375. We kind of crunched the numbers of where we might need to add stations. And so with the purchase and installation costs, as well as the staff maintenance for adding the bags and those kinds of things, it's about $43,000 just to add those stations. So it is a cost. As far as signage is concerned, it'll be dependent and variable based on the site. Some existing signage will be sufficient, some will be needed to be added or updated. So a new kind of wayfinding sign that would provide these rules or say dogs allowed is about $75. If we were needing to add a kiosk or update kiosk signage, those are a little more expensive, $250. But luckily there is a inexpensive kind of decal option, kind of a little sticker that you can get to modify signage that's very inexpensive. So if it's a matter of just changing no dogs to dogs on leash or what have you, we do have the ability to update existing signage if it's in good condition. And then as far as fencing is concerned, I crunched a recent invoice for a fencing project, and it's about $14 per lineal foot for three rail split rail. So that would kind of pencil in for Long Ranch and other locations. So with that, I'll take any questions. And I did want to note that all of the dogs that you have seen in the presentation today are all Parks Department family dogs. So
Cute as buttons. Okay. So I'll start. So I notice, great job. I just want to stress that just because I have questions or want to see some small changes within this policy does not mean I don't respect all the work that everyone did, because there is no easy answer on dog rules. We already all know that. We're not going to satisfy everyone. It's an impossible feat. So the first question, I noticed that we're going to make, let me start differently. Part of our issue is we have a code that prohibited dogs, and somewhere along the line that was not adhered to. It's as simple as that. So we ended up with dogs everywhere. And we even ended up with signs that didn't match our code that said no dogs. So that's not the public's fault. Honestly, that's ours. If we put a sign up at a park that said you could have your dog there from this hour to that hour, but that's not what our code said. So I know I heard during the testimony, because I watched them all, people wanted to know, why are we here? Why are we doing this? It's simply put that we had rules that were posted on parks that did not match our code. It's really that simple. So I applaud the staff, Open Space Commission, Parks and Rec Commission for trying to remedy the fact that we weren't in compliance with our own code. So I want to just really give a shout out to everyone on that. When we get in then to the proposed policy, the overarching objective was to try to bring some consistency to the process. I'm not going to say that I feel like we achieved that, because we didn't. We have 3 or 4 different answers, which I believe is the right answer, because no park is the same, right? No neighborhood is the same. And so while the overarching answer to have consistency throughout, I think you did try very hard to be consistent by park type. maybe we can say we were consistent by type, but not throughout the system. On Ronald D. Wilson, you want to go to off-leash, but we do not have it fenced yet. So one of my questions is, would we leave that yellow on leash until the fencing is in?
Is that the Silver Oak one? Sorry.
Yes, right?
No?
No? Oh, wait, I've got the wrong.
Sorry.
Silver Oak is John Mankins.
Oh,
John
right.
Mankins.
Okay.
Ronald D. Wilson, though, has no fencing, and that's one
Can
we'll
you tell
want
me which one that is? Sorry, I'm not.
on the map. Would you pull it up on the map? Thank you, you're right. We should have the map to put them together.
For the record, this is Dave Navarro, Parks Operations Superintendent. Madam Mayor, Supervisors, Ronald D. Wilson is on James, the corner of, kind of like the intersection of James and Mark. It is just on the north side of
Okay.
Highway
Yeah, I know where
like
it is.
580,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
So that's just a question of, until we fence it with the playground, can we write this policy in a way that is yellow until, and then it's green once it's fenced?
We could make a note.
Does that make sense where I'm going with this? 'Cause
Allowed
again-
upon completion of improvements or
Right.
something like that.
Great. So
Because
I-
we would need to build that into next year's budget, which would be
Now
for
you're
your
catching on,
approval.
because I don't want to make this effective immediately, and then we already create a huge conflict. So if on that part, we could please consider that. And then the other thing I want to do is, again, I listened to a lot of all the public comment, and so I am interested in our thoughts on creating a neighborhood park. For example, I listened to all the public comments, the surveys, and Carriage Square Park is a neighborhood park, and the people do not want dogs. That was an area that the testimony, the complaints, the stuff coming in, I feel like we should have a neighborhood park that is for picnics and children that might be allergic to dogs, deathly afraid of dogs. I think that is in our community, and I would like to have a neighborhood park. So I'd like us to consider, and the residents there do not want the dogs. They complain lots at Carriage Square. So I'd like to put that on the table to give us a neighborhood park that will not have dogs leashed or unleashed, so that we have one neighborhood park, safe zone, whatever, however you want to say it, for children to play and eat hot dogs and not worry about dogs wanting their hot dogs. And so I put that out for discussion. Do you as staff see any issue with Carriage Square being changed to red?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Currently, Carriage Square is a no-dog park. I want to be transparent and let you know we get calls all the time. The rangers are constantly dispatched out there because there are dogs in that park, despite the signage or that regulation. I will say, should you approve the policy, it gives more teeth to the enforcement side of things. So I don't see that 100% going away, but I want you to be aware of that, but it would be consistent with what the practice is right now.
And I think that your education campaign and things of that issue, if we turn Carriage Square red, that would be a wonderful park to begin the education that dogs are not allowed here.
And we do have other parks, not neighborhood parks, but geographically represented, because we looked at that, the sports complexes. So North, Centennial, Central would be Governors, and South, Pete Livermore Sports Complex are all parks that dogs are not allowed. When you don't have a big sports tournament, it's a great place to take your kids to those playgrounds there, and you have no dogs in those locations. So we do have other opportunities throughout the city geographically as well.
Right. And this
Not
would-
in a neighborhood setting, but
Right.
more of a larger park
And
setting.
this would give us a neighborhood.
You would also want to add that to the resolution, if you consider that.
Okay. And I think also in your education campaign, it would be great to mention that those parks you just discussed, like Centennial, I do not, and Governors and Pete Livermore, I don't believe people take their children there as a regular park, like a neighborhood park. I don't think they think of that. So maybe that in your educational stuff would be wonderful too. Excuse me, to get those parks used in the little playgrounds that people don't even realize.
Yeah, and I would just add
is
for
there.
people who don't know that those three parks have great playgrounds.
Mhm.
I mean, they're some of the most extensive playground, in whatever you want to call them,
Equipment,
structures.
yeah.
Yeah, some of our good ones.
That we have. So they're really good parks to go to, especially when tournaments aren't there,
Absolutely.
because no one's there. You could almost have them to yourself. So,
Yeah, I think it would be great in our, maybe our press will help us with that. Say, hey, be sure and use these great parks that, yeah, we are. We're keeping them busy. So those are I would like to see Carriage Square turned red and Ron D. Wilson upon completion of the amenities, fence, however we want to phrase that. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments, changes, updates? Supervisor Giomi?
I'm in agreement with your comments. The only, I guess, other thing I would add maybe is in relationship to Mills Park, where we have it yellow right now, and I'm wondering if we should sort of wait until the master plan is done. So I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Maybe if we don't designate Mills Park right now, and we make a decision on Mills Park once the master plan is done, and we've, as a board, have adopted the master plan. And that might mean changing the resolution, I get that, but I think it's better to get it right than to have to hurry it through. But what do you think about that, Jen?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I think the resolution could probably stay the same because the Railroad Association is very adamant about not wanting dogs around the train and
Makes
at
a
that
lot of
building.
sense, yeah.
So that would be accurate in the resolution, keeping that for like extra enforcement for the park rangers. And then I guess we could, in the list, we could still say Mills Park is prohibited, and then we could make a note, just like we're gonna make a note for Ronald D. Wilson, pending master plan update approval, and then in your action to update the master plan, you could also add to your action to revise the park policy or
Yes.
something like
Okay.
that.
I like that because I think it makes sense. We're making a decision right now
Yeah.
on Mills Park when you're still doing work on compiling the master plan. And
Absolutely.
And I think, if you're going to put a dog park specifically in Mills Park, then I would say the rest of the park probably should be red.
Right.
Because then we have a dog area at Mills Park so anyway, I think that's a decision we could make going forward that,
I think that's a good discussion
Yeah.
at the master plan item.
yeah, okay, perfect. Other than that, I'm in agreement with what the mayor suggested. Thank you.
Supervisor Shooty?
Hi. Yeah, thank you for all this work. I know it's been quite the process and a lot of back and forth, give and take in the spirit of finding balance, creating a variety of options, and keeping people safe. One suggestion, and I'm in complete agreement, perhaps in the areas that it is on leash, perhaps say on leash only, just to really reiterate that this is the expectation. And I think that could also help our park rangers when they're called to have that educational moment and help with enforcement.
Can we, sorry, just as an amendment to that, I know sometimes, I have what some people will call an e-leash, which is a shock collar. And my assumption is that we want the dogs to be on physical leashes, not e-leashes. So it might be better to specify that somewhere in there, just so it's very clear, because I know some people who will try to push that envelope. And I think it should just be clear along with the on-leash only comment. It will help, I think, to
Add
make
that
sure
to the
people don't,
policy.
try to,
Do we define leash did we define a leash in the policy?
It does? Okay, so,
Or we could
I
just
didn't
add
think
it
about
in the
that part.
definition? Add leash definition?
Yeah, just put a definition for leash in.
Okay.
That it's a, as you said, cord or a tether, and then, you know, specifically excluding e-collars.
Right. Yeah, let's just add a leash definition so that,
And
Like you
clarify
said.
that e-leashes
yeah.
are not acceptable.
Right. Okay. Supervisor White.
Thank you. Yeah, I had some concerns on the consistency part of this as well. Mills Park is already covered. If you look on page 456 at the open space, it designates where dogs can be off a leash. However, 16 of those areas that are listed in this proposed ordinance don't show up in the open space website. So how do we make an ordinance that isn't, it conforms with current information on our websites? You know, I do realize we have a really different park system than most communities do. But we have to have that website updated, up to date, because without intricate knowledge of our park system, the folks are going to rely on the website to find out where they can legally recreate with their dogs. So I think we need to get all of those other little cars in this train on the same track.
We can absolutely do that. We've been working really hard to update the website, and
Yeah.
obviously we're not done. It's always a work in progress, but we can absolutely do that.
In regards to on leash or off leash, I have to tell you, I have some really serious concerns, as I expressed when we had our meeting, with dogs being off leash at any time. As a board, we're required to provide this community with a safe environment. I don't think that this ordinance does that. At 1.0 and 3.1, it talks about the department shall reasonably provide a safe and user-friendly experience. And it talks about enforceable regulations at 1.0. 3.2.2 and 4.4 talking about off-leash voice command control. So I have quite a lot to say, so I have it written down here. Any animal can be trained to respond consistently to voice commands under ideal conditions. Being in public, and especially being in a public park, are not ideal conditions. 3.2.2 and 4.4 are not enforceable because we can only react to repeated failure of this so-called voice-restrained idea. I don't want to have to respond after a dog is not restrained by its owner. The American Veterinary Medical Association has written several papers on the subject of dog control, and I want to share with you several excerpts of what they have written. In a paper called Recognizing Risky Behavior Helps Prevent Dog Bites, any number of things could cause a dog to act out, even if there haven't been any prior problems with that dog. You can reduce the risk of dog bite injuries, and the most important thing is to never think that any dog is completely safe. The important thing to remember is that any dog can be dangerous and any dog can bite. In the paper titled Dog Bite Prevention, Plan for Success, allow your children to interact with your dog regularly, but only with supervision and attention to keeping the interactions positive. Keep the child and the dog separated unless there is constant adult supervision. It is also important to use a leash in public to make sure that you're able to control your dog. In their paper titled Community Approach to dog bite prevention. Dog bites are a serious public health problem that inflicts considerable physical and emotional damage on victims and incurs immeasurable hidden costs to communities. Unrestrained and free-roaming dogs do pose a substantial threat to the public. Children are the most common victim of dog bites. 70% of fatal dog bites are children, and more than half of bite wounds requiring medical attention involve children. In the paper titled "A Better Solution to Dog Bite Prevention." Among other recommendations, the AVMA recommends enforcement of animal control ordinances such as leash laws. The American Kennel Club tells us that just 8% of dogs attend obedience classes, defined as training your dog to obey basic commands that are necessary for keeping proper control of the dog. Studies from the American Pet Product Association and the Journal of the American Animal Hospitalization Association show that less than 5% of dogs attend training classes. That means perhaps north of 90% of the dogs you are proposing to be at large in our community have no training, and the owners are likely unable to restrain their dogs with voice command. With 4.5 million dog bites per year, the AVMA recommends dogs be on a leash when in public. According to dogsbite.com, Nevada is well within the top 20 for dog bite fatalities for the period 2005 through 2020. Dog reports for Carson City, the period 2020 to 2022. We had 348 dog bites on people, 63 dog bites on other animals, 2,337 strays have been reported. People do not and cannot control their dogs now. This policy will provide even more opportunity to make this community less safe. This policy does not provide a safe and user-friendly experience. It's not worth the risk to have dogs off-leash, unrestrained in our community, anywhere in our community. One final observation is, I don't see in this policy an exemption for law enforcement canine units to be in our parks, obviously off-leash. For me, if you want to be consistent and enforceable, the answer is on leash, all the time, everywhere.
Supervisor Schutte?
I just want to comment a little bit from what was just said. Free roaming and at large is different than people going to a fenced-in area where animals are off leash. So at large, those are strays. Now, I understand that not everyone is a good pet owner, and dogs will get out of their yard. But we're not talking about that. We are talking about parks and parks where the majority that the dogs would be on leash. But then there are several that they would be allowed off leash in a fenced area, so they're not at large. So I just want to make that distinction. Yes, there are always risks, and I think we can talk about risks in daily life. So I just think, I think it's an important conversation to have. There are people who have dogs that the dogs want to exercise, they want to run. My goofball dog, Hank, for example, very well behaved, a complete knucklehead, and utterly joyful. He's a big guy and he's strong. I am a really good runner. And, but for Hank to actually get really good exercise, me running on the trail on leash, it's not great for Hank and it's not great for my arm. I'm also, though, very mindful that some people on the trail whose dogs are on leash don't want Hank to come up and say hello. And so therefore, I don't let him off leash off trails. He's just a big goofball. But I do really appreciate the fenced areas, the dog parks, to allow Hank to go and run and play and be a knucklehead. Now, if he is in a negative, if his behavior is bad, he won't be going anymore, and we wouldn't be welcomed by other users. So people are, they tell on each other and they call. And are there problems? Absolutely, because with human beings come problems. But to, I think, take away, I mean, I really see this as finding a balance, finding that variety of opportunity to give people that choice and that safety. And if you're out with little kiddos, then it is more appropriate to go to parks or go on walks with your dogs on leash. If there's a dog running at large, that is not about this park deal. This is about walking in the street. That's a whole nother issue. But I think it is our responsibility to find balance and meet the needs of most. That's one of the reasons why I support some of the parks not having any dogs. I support areas leash only, and I support areas off leash.
Supervisor Giomi?
I think the other component of this that will benefit the community as a whole once it's done and the map is particularly an interactive map, it will let people know who are opposed to being around dogs where to go so they don't have to be around dogs. The park that I frequent the most, two places that I take my dog is the VNT Trail and up to the water tanks behind my house and to Long Ranch Park. And the people that come to Long Ranch Park are almost all dog users because they know that Long Ranch Park, even despite the ordinance, has been, since those homes were there, has been a place for dogs to be able to run off leash. And so you see very well-behaved dogs, but more importantly, you see very well-behaved people managing their dogs. And that's the key. Well-behaved people managing their dogs. And the people that have come there who have not known that it's a dog park, when you interact with them, or when those of us who are dog owners interact with them, we describe what's going on. They go, "Oh, this is great. I didn't know we could do this. We're going to bring our kids and our dogs next time." So I think, the advantage here is allowing people to know where they can go and not have to worry about dogs. And you're absolutely right, Lisa. I mean, striking the balance is critical in that process. In any case, thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I really take to what Supervisor White said to heart, and we had a stricter version of this policy that went before the Parks Commission and the Open Space Advisory Committee that basically said essentially that. And we had certain communities, like Long Ranch as an example, where I received hundreds of emails opposing a leash only at that area. So while I appreciate that, the city does not have a leash law. And if that's something that the board wants to do at a city level and pursue, I know that the Humane Society has said to us that this is a good first step toward that end. And most communities from the Humane Society, they said that most communities our size do have a leash law. And this might be a good first step toward that, to see how this goes and be like a litmus test for them. But that would be, the animal codes, and that's Title VII. So I appreciate that, and having 2 kids that have been bit by off-leash dogs, it's really scary, as a parent and, from a child, it makes you so you don't trust animals. And being a dog owner, and then we have a dog at home, they're just, it's a quandary that you're in. So I really appreciate that. And I do want you to know, we did present a more stricter version and we got a lot of pushback. So this was an attempt, and this is the version that was recommended by the Parks Commission and the Open Space Advisory Committee to try to find what balance they could with that. But I do appreciate those comments.
Supervisor White?
Thank you for that. Yeah, balance is what we have to do while we sit up here. And if you want to talk about balance and compromise, on leash all the time is the balance and compromise, because frankly, dogs in parks is a bad idea to start with. It's not sanitary, it spreads disease. People aren't comfortable about go lay down on the lawn where dogs have been pooping and peeing. So for me, I am offering a compromise. If it was up to me, there would be no dogs in any park anywhere. On leash is the answer when you need to provide safety to all of the community. When a dog does not respond to voice command, that dog is at large, whether they're fenced in or on the sidewalk or whatever. I gave you the statistics that show you, without question, at least 90% of the dogs that we're talking about are not trained and cannot be relied upon to respond to a voice command. You're asking for trouble to do this.
Thank you. When I look at the off-leash ones, I see that, so if we can talk specifically, the Capital City Gun Club, the reason for off-leash is that's where they train animals with hunting, so that's a
And that's the current
specific
practice.
purpose
Yes.
for dogs to learn to hunt. So it's a specific purpose event that's occurring there with animals. The Fuji Park Dog Park that's off leash is fenced. So the general public, I guess what I'm going for is the liability for potential conflict. So it's on leash till it gets into the fenced area
Correct.
of the dog park, and then you take your risk of dog conflicts.
Yes.
Within, but it's a fenced area specifically for dogs. Long Ranch, no fencing, and isn't Long Ranch even, I'm gonna be super honest on this one, a little bit crazier? Don't they, like, one side is put it on the leash and the other side is not?
Yeah.
Because the
it's-
side where the playground is,
it-
right? Or
it's-
something is.
Yeah, it's, I think, confusing, and like the
Yes.
dog can see the invisible line in the sand on where, he can go. That just doesn't work. So that's why our suggestion was to fence the playground. So that way we can ensure, there's definitely no dogs in the play area. So you can take your toddler and they can play in the playground. And that was something we'd like to put into next year's budget as a mitigation to make sure.
That we're fencing the
Yeah,
areas.
the
And so
playground area.
I think that you're seeing our
We looked at,
pattern here.
Yeah.
When we're gonna be off leash, it's fenced. I guess that's what
That
what
wouldn't
I'm
be
getting
accurate in the
to.
open space areas, though.
Not open space. I
Yeah,
think I
just
think
parks.
open space isn't quite, the exposure and opportunities for dog bites is not nearly as extensive as a park with 50 kids running around versus, again,
They're more remote areas.
the more remote areas. Yes, it's completely different. So what I want to make sure is I'm trying to mitigate, as Supervisor White has indicated, where can I mitigate dog bites to the best?
So Long Ranch would be the opposite of,
We're gonna
like Ronald
do
D.
the
Wilson will
playground.
have a fenced area where you can allow your dog off leash in that fenced area. Long Run's the opposite. We would have a fence for
Around
the
the playground.
playground to mitigate the current practice and the desires of the community that came forward.
I'm just making sure that we're all understanding that we're looking at fencing as the mitigation. Obviously, Supervisor White's answer of on leash at all times throughout the city is like the top of the extension, right?
Sure.
That's the answer. It still doesn't mean you're not going to get bites because people go up to dogs on leashes,
Yep.
which I don't understand. But,
Again,
well, again,
Again,
it's
with
not going to mean
compromise.
we get no bites. We're just looking for the best potential mitigations here. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm trying to find, as a board, we're helping mitigate. Are we going as far as Supervisor White wants to go? Probably not. But when I look at what we're having green in the everyday park part, the massive use, the infill portion of our community, everything will be a fenced objective, right?
So there
That's green.
wasn't an intent to fence Mayor's Park, but we can pursue that as well. It would be additional costs. It's pretty well contained being the
Yeah, and there's
detention
no
basin.
playground.
But
there,
Mare
and
Park
there's no
has no
playground there.
playground. I was gonna mention, the only difference is Mayor's Park, but there's no playground.
There is not.
And it's a big detention.
Yeah.
It's
They're
probably full of
easier
water right
contained.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I mean,
It is easier contained.
right, that one had.
Could you fence it? Sure, you'd have to have
dog
considerations
swimming
for
park today.
stormwater.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that particular park is not
There's no
where the
playground.
little children go and play, and because there's no playgrounds there.
Well, I actually, the folks that repair my car are right down there, and there's people playing volleyball in that park all the time.
It's an
I
active
didn't say
park.
it wasn't used, there's just no playgrounds with the little kids. There's no playground there, right, at Mayor's Park?
There's not.
Okay, I didn't think there was. And so nothing's optimal, but the other thing was to fit, they're gonna take their dogs. The reality of the situation is 1302-090 has been around for a long time and we haven't implemented it, enforced it, or done it in, I don't know.
It would.
I don't
it
wanna
would be
say how
im-
many years,
Yeah, it
but-
would be impossible for us to enforce.
It's
at this
just
point.
not going to happen. So I think that we have worked hard as a board today to come up with, a leash definition to ensure that the leash means it's a tether or a cord, not an e-leash. We may have to come up with the law enforcement exemption. This code does not apply to canines assigned to a law enforcement unit, something of that nature.
While on duty.
Yeah, as assigned to, while on duty's fine. Carriage Square going red. Mills Park, we're not gonna do now till the master plan. We'll hit Mills Park when we do the master plan. Ron D. Wilson, when it's fenced.
Yeah, so that would be in addition to 4.5 would be Ronald D. Wilson. And then Carriage Square, we need to add to 4.2.2
Right.
as well as the resolution.
Right. Was there anything
I do want to
overall?
point out too, on the duties of the park director, I can authorize use, temporary use. So for example, of like, let's say they wanted to do a canine training like at the rifle range, we could authorize that. There are,
One-offs.
provisions and one-offs that we can authorize
Well,
without
like
question.
we do the dog show at Fuji Park. That's
Yes.
not in the fenced dog.
Absolutely.
That's a
Yeah.
one-off that.
And dog
have
shows are
hundreds of
listed,
dogs.
but for the
Right,
law
that
enforcement
type of
canine
stuff.
question, we can definitely
Yeah, we
authorize
did that in the arena at Fuji Park. They had a canine event.
We've even allowed it at Pete Livermore in the parking lot for them to do some training. So, I mean, we definitely provide any opportunity where possible for law enforcement to be able to do their
Mhm.
training.
I had one, and I forgot to ask it earlier, and maybe it's just me being ridiculous looking at this, but when I looked at 3.2, responsibility of dog owners, 3.2.5, dog owners shall not allow their dogs to chase, harass, or disturb wildlife or livestock. What about people? We don't want them chasing kids or I just thought, shouldn't we put people in there?
Yeah, that,
Okay.
that was something the Humane Society asked to be added in there.
They wouldn't do that.
But, yeah.
They still do, but I mean, I think we should add people.
Okay.
It's just one of those weird things, right? You read something, I go, well, what about me? I don't want them jumping on me. Okay, so if we could add people into 3.25, I would appreciate that too.
I think, or people or other dogs.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or other dogs.
Okay. Or other dogs.
Cats or mice.
Other animals? Just say animals.
Yeah, they're not
right?
all wildlife. They could be domestic.
Yeah, because that way it's domestic too, right? Just other animals. Okay. Supervisor Shooty, and then I'll go to public comment.
I just have a clarification regarding fencing. Lindsay, you had spoken about the split rail fence, but I really think that a chain link would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that
Chain
on the
link
record.
would be appropriate around the playground, and that would meet, playground guidelines as well.
As
So-
well as, I think, the
Keeping the
fence
dogs.
dog
In the
parks,
open space
too.
areas, definitely the split rail fencing
Well,
is
open
appropriate.
space, right, but I
But
think
for
about,
parks,
and
and-
Ron Wilson, yeah.
that would be chain link.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, then I think I don't know. Yeah, we beat up on this pretty good. Do I have any public comment? Mr. French?
Hi. First off, thank you all for your efforts, and thank you all for your efforts. There's a range of and a spectrum here of beliefs, and I tend to be with Supervisor White on all leash, all time. I am the recipient, or have been, the victim of more than 8 bites in different issues, more than once from different dogs, so I don't count each bite mark. One situation, one incident with 3 dogs sent me to the emergency, but not the hospital. I love dogs. My own dog is part of that bite list. I had to protect my dog, and my dog had to protect itself as it was attacked by a free-running dog with a very well considerate, thoughtful person with them that had no control once that dog took after my dogs. I had 2 dogs. I had to release one to save her from being a hit. So I had to release her to run. While I couldn't get my other dog unleashed, he, to protect himself, was biting out, and I got bit by him. I also got bit by this attacker. And I got to tell you, it's the only time I've ever kicked a dog intentionally. I have been through a lot, and this is really tough on me. Emotionally, I didn't think it would add up like this, but when I was being very careful to add up the facts that all of those incidents were usually not the dog's fault, was not intended to be an attack by the dog that was running at my dog, but by the time it got close enough and was hearing my dog's responses to its approach, it aggravated that dog into the attack, I believe. So, but the owner wasn't even involved. A setter was out with the dog. I was supposed to be reimbursed for the incident. I want to make this short. One of the things that was not brought up in this is that I've been bit by one dog that had no leash, no collar, no ID. That put me in a tough spot. Luckily, they were able to capture the dog and have it reviewed, and I didn't need the rabies shots. At that time, the needles were huge and the situation was bad, and I had only a small scratch because my gear belt saved my hand. But the deal is, you don't have the vaccine requirements and ID on this at all. And is that
It's in there
something?
somewhere.
It's not in this policy, it's in a different part of our
All right,
CCMC.
thank you very much, and I
The
appreciate
animal
this.
control in Title VII. Right.
I appreciate everybody that loves dogs. Thank you very much for those that are not also as duly inclined.
you.
Thank you.
Do I have any further public comment? Ms. Coe?
Heather Coe, for the record. I would like to see a leash law. My dog's been attacked, and I got knocked off my feet up by the college by a woman who had a pit bull that was not on a leash. So many children go up there to skateboard, and it's very dangerous. And I'd like to see some fines. I have new neighbors all over my neighborhood that are not putting their dogs on leashes. And it's not just dangerous for the kids, it's dangerous for everyone. And if your dog bites someone, it could be put down, and no one wants to see that. So I'm okay with exemptions for the police or training. That's fine. Or even at Fuji Park in a fenced area, but only one area. We just can't have dogs running around. And there is so much wildlife down here now. That's also a problem when dogs go after them. I have a fox that has decided it likes my neighborhood and loves my mother's backyard. And it's a gorgeous fox, but my dog tried to go after it and drug me with it, and it was not fun to pull her back. So we really need to be strict on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back up here. On the, I had one other on the whereas clauses, since we have to correct to the resolution for the 1302 reference. The third whereas, I really believe I'd like to see that sentence updated slightly to establish regulations related to dog use either throughout or within, not through. Dogs running through, yes, but I mean, right? So if we're gonna, the 445.
445.
Say it again.
Regulation related to dog use throughout Carson City's park and open space areas. Yeah, they accidentally just had through. They had dogs on their mind. It worked. Okay. And then you already got the correction on number 2.
I can try a motion.
Are we ready for a motion?
I can try it.
Okay.
As a side note, and interestingly, the only 2 times my dog has been bitten was when she and the other dog were both on leashes.
Well, that's what I said.
So
Yeah.
it's,
It doesn't stop.
Anyway,
They're right, it doesn't stop.
let's see if we can make this work. I move to approve resolution number 2023-R-1 with the following changes. After the third whereas, adding the word out to through, so it'll read throughout. In number 1, setting the date as March 1. Does that work? For an effective date. On item 2 on the resolution, changing 13.01.090 to 13.02.090. Adding Carriage Square Park and Mills Park to B in number 2. In the dog rules and regulations policy, I move to approve that as well with the following changes. Adding an exemption for on-duty law enforcement animals. Adding a definition of leash to exclude e-leashes. To 3.2.5, adding to the end of the sentence or other people, or a comma, other people or other animals. To 4.2.2, adding Carriage Square and Mills Park. And updating the, what is this attachment? What is this? Attachment something? Updating the list to make Carriage Square dogs prohibited, Mills Park dogs prohibited, Ronald D. Wilson off leash upon completion of fenced improvements. And then allowing the DA to make any other conforming changes if needed to the resolution or the ordinance.
Or the policy.
Or the policy, sorry.
Policy, not ordinance. Okay. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. And then for the record too, I think the discussion on a citywide leash law will come back to us under Title VII. I think that it's time, like you said, it's time to bring that forward.
This really brings to light, and I mean, really, all of the comments, even with the wildlife and the animals and the fox and the deer, and so when you're out walking your dog on the street, it's just safer for everyone. And a vehicle driving and someone's walking their dog, and if it's on leash, there's better chance that it can be contained. So there's definitely that need for the citywide law.
Okay, then let's see, we're on our non-action items as the Board of Supervisors. Ms. Paulson, any updates or anything to bring forward?
I just have great news that we're 1 month away from the 82nd legislative session.
That's great news.
Yeah.
I like how that was great news.
Right. And just in the next couple of meetings, you're going to see the 60% update of the William Street project.
Okay.
And that was it.
Thank you. Anybody from the board have other stuff to share?
Yeah, just.
Supervisor Giomi.
I just wanted to share with the board that I was on the review committee who reviewed the proposals for the ARPA funds for the homeless project. And I'm not going to get into details because it's going to be brought forward by Mariana, but I just want to tell you all or restate the obvious that this is a Mount Everest to climb with someone in my body. I mean, it's just, it is going to be incredibly difficult. The proposals were as a whole well-meaning. They weren't as thorough as I expected them to be on the whole. And I'm not trying to fault anybody. I'm just making that comment because I think it reflects the difficulty and the different ways in which people approach trying to deal with this problem. And it is no wonder that there are, communities bigger than ours that have not found successful ways to deal with this problem. So there are a few recommendations. I'll throw my 2 cents worth in when they get presented to you as we review them as a body. I guess I would say I'm less hopeful than I was when we started this process about the ability to make real change happen in the short term. I think one of the biggest keys to the issue is defining the problem and identifying the homeless population and their specific needs. And I think if we take steps in that, this is just my opinion. If we take steps in that direction, it helps us get a handle on the problem, because I don't know that we have a real good full handle on the problem yet. And I think it's difficult to find a solution when we're lacking the data for the handle. And I'll give you an example. In Las Vegas, I work on some homeless issues in my other job with the city of Las Vegas, and they have a whole department of community services that deals with homeless issues. And they have a database, and if you're a provider of services to the homeless, then you're required to participate in this database that allows you to gather information about the people you're serving and what their needs are and where that service is being provided. So that if you are providing a service to individual A and I'm providing a service to individual A, we're working together to make that work as opposed to working diametrically. And right now we don't have that. It became very apparent during this process that we're lacking comprehensive data. And so I could talk quite a bit longer, but I wanted to give you that update and let you know that this is not easy to solve, folks. And I don't think any of us thought it was. But I don't want to lead you to believe that I'm going down this vortex of doom, but I I feel less optimistic than I did before, just because it's so daunting and so complex. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do something. I just think we need to think about what it is we end up doing, which we're going to do.
And I think you see such, I haven't seen the proposals, but you see diverse proposals in this arena because identifying the problem is impossible because there isn't the problem. Every individual has that circumstance of why they're there. Every individual has that stimuli that they will respond to that helps them overcome whatever those other issues are. And everybody trying to provide help has a different idea what that help should be. So you have to have all these divergent ideas so that you can find a place where
The right
people that
person
need
fits.
help will fit.
Yeah.
Because they're
No.
not going to fit over here, but they're going to fit.
No, that's a good point. And I think the thing we learned in this process is that it is not inexpensive, and that really is been the stumbling block in any community you go to. That the cost of helping a single person get through a crisis, whatever that crisis may be, is astronomically expensive. One of the people in the proposal said, you have to, and this really stuck with me, you have to most of these people who are homeless are, quite frankly, and I'm not talking about the people who are tangentially homeless. It's someone who may be sleeping in their car or couch surfing, someone who is long-term homeless. They have gotten very good at being homeless. They're very good at it. They are not good at being housed.
Right.
They are not good at doing the things that allow them to remain housed. And until you can flip that switch or alter that story so that they are better at being housed than they are at being homeless, you're not going to affect change.
I know a person that's been lifelong on the street. This person's been off the street now for almost a year. He still sleeps on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, it's, anyway, it's, I feel a little bit more disparaged than I did going in, just because it's sad that, we all aspire to make our world a better place, I think. And if all of us could wave our magic wand and solve that homeless issue, I think we would, among other things, right? We each have our things, but it just struck me how difficult a hill we have to climb, or they have to climb, I should say. It's not our hill to climb; it's their hill to climb, and it's a rough one.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything we've been quiet over the holiday, right? Okay. With that, on the board side of this, we will move to final public comment as the Board of Supervisors. Mr. French? Mr. Denny, or Denny?
No,
Should I
no,
call you Denny?
that's
Mr.
fine.
Okay.
I know you're all tuckered out. It's been a long meeting. It's been emotional for me, a lot more than I had thought. But when you start to regroup after having a past that you think you resolved and then have it hit you again, sort of right in the face with the emotions and brings it right back. So the discussion got me a little round. I am concerned about sidewalk safety. Right now with the snow such as it is on the sidewalks, you can't get to the light buttons. You can't get up those ramps that are now snowbound or riverbound. One thing I'd like to bring up before I forget, and train of thought's an issue for me, but if you get a chance, check out Lone Mountain Cemetery. There's a skating rink starting up towards Beverly and the Roop area there. It's bigger than any water holding situation that I've seen there, and I pass there quite often. But you have to peek through the fence. The next thing is that those sidewalks are treacherous. I would do better to walk, and I have walked out in the street later at night than walk on that sidewalk. And those ramps, bless their hearts, When I was in a wheelchair, those ramps came in handy, and the city even came in and helped me with a drive situation because there were no ramps near my place. So I had to get up a driveway, but that little lip like this was insurmountable for me with my chair. So the deal is that engineers have got to come up with a better mousetrap on this one, because in the wintertime, they create lakes and ponds this situation is unusual. I don't see how people do it. I was lucky enough this morning to follow somebody that had proceeded before me, and I stepped in their footprints. Also, just to let people know that when I headed out, the slush was such that I could tell I was following a deer right up the street I was on, and sure enough, we met at the end of the street. I was trying to avoid the direction it was going, but there was no other path for me. Thank you very much for your efforts and your time, and I hate to be the last guy sitting, but thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
Can we just reiterate too, to that point, Denny, that clearing the sidewalks in front of your home or business is the responsibility under our ordinance of the property owner. So it bears, repeating that, unfortunately the city's not going to clear sidewalks. They don't have the staff to do that. And our ordinance says that it is the responsibility of the property owner.
I'm going to use the last 36 seconds, 34, to suggest that the design factors in some cases on those ramps should be considered regardless of whose responsibility it is. And as far as when the plowing's done, there's no way a neighborhood person could do that off. And in some cases, the slippery we're coming up with do better to walk in the snow. So I've quite frankly not done my sidewalk for that very reason. The slip rate on my front for myself is less when I've got a snowpack under my feet, not the ice. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Denny. Yeah, thank you, Denny.
And thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other public to ask for any more public comment. Thank you, Denny. So we're gonna adjourn as the Board of Supervisors, and I'm gonna call the Redevelopment Authority to order. May I have a roll call, please? Mr. Hohen?
Chair,
Oh, sorry. Which one wants to do it? I assume when the clerk is here, you're doing them. Okay, that's what I assume. Thanks.
There you go. Supervisor Giomi.
Vice Chair Gioni here.
Supervisor White. Supervisor Horton. Supervisor Schutte.
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here. Chair.
Chair.
You'll learn on this
I'll
one. The Redevelopment Authority, we have different titles,
Got it.
right? I know. Don't worry. I didn't promote Mr. Mays properly this morning either. I'm like, I've been here through every promotion, and I'm like, whoops, which one is he on? Okay, so we'll have opening public comment for the Redevelopment Authority. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 23, which is approval of our October 6th, 2022 minutes. Did anyone have any corrections, changes? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval.
Move to approve the Redevelopment Authority meeting minutes of October 6, 2022 as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Let the record, Supervisor Schutte, was that an aye?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
let the record reflect that was unanimous. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item 24A, which is discussion and possible action for the election of a chair and vice chair of the Redevelopment Authority, each for 1 year ending December 31st, 2023. As we did on the last one, I assume everybody wants to keep doing it? Yeah, Stacy? Yeah, okay. So I'll accept a motion. You want to do it, Stacy, or me?
I think Curtis should do his first motion.
He did a motion.
He did a motion?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to throw him at the bus every chance I get, Kurt.
Gosh, you're working on it.
I move to appoint Lori Bagwell as chair of the Redevelopment Authority and myself as vice chair, each for a 1 year term ending on December 31, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Can't flip the tab fast enough. Yep, we're just on final public comment. you want me to call you Denny or Mr. French? You're okay, all right. Oh, no, it's not that. It's always just, do I call him Mr. French, but when you know him.
No, no, no.
When you know him really well, it's like, oh,
Thank you.
shoot, I could use his first
We're in
name.
between a business meeting and
Yeah, exactly,
familiarity,
so
right?
like,
No,
Okay,
I
Denny.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I've been called worse. The deal is, thank you very much, Supervisor and Board. And I didn't mean to jump at you about my sidewalk situation, but I'm talking the curbs and gutters around the street lights and such are not hard, you can't
Crosswalk
get to,
paths.
exactly, and I appreciate that. The next thing is that Empire Cemetery seems to not have an owner. According to Jennifer Budge, they cannot trace down an owner. And I'm concerned about the grading that was put into to allow for waste management's development. And I think my personal feeling is that if another review of the location size and such with a survey would suggest that the cemetery's area or property had been cut into by that grading. And the grading is so steep that I'm worried that it's going to take part of the cemetery with it if it goes. So I would like just to let you all know my concerns and go from there as far as you're looking at it yourselves. And the issue I had just recently at Longview Way Loop next to,
Denny, I just need to stop you. This is public comment on redevelopment,
right. well,
not general city business.
Oh, I'm
It
sorry.
has to be under the jurisdiction of the, we're acting as a different board right now.
Well,
So
I
I just
got
want
that.
to
I just didn't
clarify
catch-
for you,
Thank you.
we're redevelopment.
I
Okay.
apologize.
No, that's all right. It's hard to catch up and
I'll pass
for
on
all
the,
of
on the
us,
final
thank you.
statement. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so if there's nothing more to come before us, we will adjourn as the redevelopment authority. And thank you, Curtis, for your first meeting and everyone. And Scott, welcome. And we look forward